Welcome to another edition of Strange New Pod. I'm your Fleet Admiral and host, Julian Brown, alongside the best bridge crew this side of a bloody knife bowl. It's all part of the ambiance, right? Commander Hawk is here, who is currently weaning himself off of the moans. Got to get off those moans, buddy.
You know how it is. You go on a moan trip, you wind up in a moan dungeon.
Oh, the moan dungeons. Captain Giraffe is here, wanting to hit the club with Mariner and also find the oil baths. I think we all want to take an oil bath, honestly.
You know I'm getting stabbed in the shoulder right away, right?
All three times. All three times.
And fourth time at the wedding, the party never stops.
I love the bank shot.
But the wedding one is going to be the worst because it's probably going to be like a dull butter knife. So I don't think anybody wants that. That's just me. And then finally, Commander MC is here, jotting down all the 10D cosplay notes from this. Maybe all the Orion ones. Maybe you'll do
all
Erica
the Orion.
Yeah, all the Orion.
Yeah, that Orion captain. There's an Orion with purple hair. Like, come on, that's directly for me.
Let's not forget about Orion Ursula, which now other people have dubbed. I want to say I dubbed the Ursula when we did our preview episode. I'm claiming it. And then I also know someone who just debuted a 10D cosplay. That's right, a warm Orion, and it does include knives. Welcome to our dear friend and fellow 10D adorer. I love 10D so much. Jessie Earl is back. It is so good to have you. Welcome back to the pod. How have you been?
I say I have been wonderful, my friends.
Well, that's just a wonderful to hear.
I do declare. No, it's great to be back. I am so excited to talk about this episode and to be here because this episode just has me so freaking pumped. I literally told Giraffe, I'm like, can I be on your show for this episode? Because I need to talk about it. So I'm excited. I'm just very, very excited.
I hadn't watched the episode yet. The episode was not even out.
Yeah, it was
was not even out.
Yeah,
and she was like,
back when we got
I'm coming for episode 4. I'm coming. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. Always.
I think I told you. Yeah, I was like, I need to come on for episode 4. I need to do it. I need to talk about it.
I love 10D so much, and I immediately kind of, before Dress said, I was like, Jessie's been wanting to come back for a while, and this is going to be the episode that she has.
I don't know if you can.
So I didn't see it.
See her. There's 10D. I have a 10D cut out right there. But
I see. Yeah.
She's like right there. There's Jessie, and then there's 10D sort of hiding there, but I can't really get her angle on her.
Oh, so. The very best.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go any further, of course, we have to mention that this episode of Strange New Pod and Livestream was recorded during the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes, and without the labor of the amazing writers and actors who make all of the amazing Trek content that we cover and review every single week, it wouldn't exist. So they're fighting for a better deal, residuals, to say fuck you to AI. So let's get a deal done. It's really important. We love our writers. We love our actors. Giraffe, before we go any further, you just had that epic event over the weekend and raised a shit ton of money. Talk about that real quick.
So I want to thank everybody. So many people. First of all, the collective was absolutely amazing. They donated so much money. So thank you so much. And then thank you to all my friends who accepted to do weird interviews in the middle of the day. Jessie was one of my interviewees, and Bonnie Gordon, Dr. Erin, Aaron Walkie, Naomi Millimed, all friend of the show, and it was just amazing. And we raised $2,000. So thank you so much. This money is going to the Entertainment Community Fund, which now I can pronounce.
Yay!
It keeps going. Sorry.
Supports actors, writers, everybody working in the entertainment community. So during the strike, but also when the strike is not happening, they help everybody working in the industry we love to go through the day and go through the month. So if you want to donate, their handle is a life for the Arts, I think, on Twitter, ECF Entertainment Community Fund. So thank you again, everybody.
Well done, Giraffe, and thank you to everyone in our collective for donating. It is a really good cause, obviously. We know what the writers and these actors are fighting for. So just everybody, well done, well done. Let's get into it. I just want to say also good evening to the YouTube chat, which is freaking hopping. Good to see all of you in there. And I also, because they posted it in the YouTube chat and it's public knowledge at this point, we want to send our absolute best wishes to one of our Patreon Collective members and friends, Wayne. He's in our chat. He's currently in the hospital. He had to get some surgery and I believe is watching us from his hospital bed or chair. I went and visited him the other day. He is in good spirits. We love you. Get better. All of that fun stuff. I will bring you a Dunkin' coffee soon. I promise. I promise. Let's get into it, guys. This week, what happens when Tendi is given leave to attend her sister's wedding with Mariner and T'Lyn in tow, and then only to find out that she's been kidnapped. To Erica has been kidnapped. What did her friends not only learn about Tendi, but Orion culture? Because Orion culture is something, folks. It's lots of fun. Meanwhile, on the Cerritos, when roomies Boimler and Rutherford run into some differences of opinion, how do they sort it out, and why does it involve Mark frickin' Twain? I do say,
Why
sure.
doesn't it? Why doesn't it? Everything should involve Mark Twain.
I say there shouldn't be an Orion hurricane, but a mint julep, I think. Yes.
Never argue with stupid people.
This is gonna
They
go
will drag
down.
you down to their level and beat you with experience.
I believe that is an actual Mark Twain quote, yes?
I've got a bunch of them here. I'm probably just going to
let's
drop them
go.
at random tonight.
Next time that there is anything with Mark Twain, you know who we need to invite. I'm gonna give some secret, but Josh Gilliland, from the Legal Geek.
Yeah.
Yep.
His brother is the Mark Twain impersonator on TikTok that does all the
that's
weird
awesome.
and fun videos. And he looks absolutely incredible. And he does these insane videos. I have to look for his handle, but go follow him if you don't. And when he told me he was his brother, I was like, that's your brother? So we can have real Mark Twain on the show.
Oh my God.
I'm here for it, but it's going to devolve into madness.
Josh, if you hear this, no, we need to meet your brother.
I'm here for it. We are going to break all of that down, including a lot more of us in Mark Twain's voice doing it horribly. We apologize. Not really. But first, MC, it is your turn. We need to thank our ever-growing list of amazing Patreon Collective members at the Ready Room level and above.
Thank you to Simon Stager, Jeff Reeves, Mariah Gossett, Tallulah, Jen Stein, Tina Alexander, Joe Saporito, Noe Santos, Ken Hui, Tatako Nagumo, Kara Kennedy, Fernanda Nogales, SMK, Laura Linderman, Colin Davison, Alan Davis, Jesco, Michael Graham, Emily and Travis, Gildara, Cassie, Rawa Hamper, Maggie Light, Living Beef, Rain Witz, Skoda Fark, Sean, Jay Howard, Anna Uridon, Mehalani Uchiyama, Matt Herker, Rob Sampson, Joshua Lewis, David Willett, Tara Polland, Slope 74, Rude Parakeet, Joshua Miller, Adam Sanders, Eris Spenjan, Lanky Guy, Cynthia Markey, Aaron Waltke, Carl Angoli, Michael Kwan, TJ, Mayor, Caitlin, Elizabeth Dean, Jim McMahon, The Chief, Ernesto Castagna, Sedano, 317, Puka Hair, 3 Fries Short, Kate Tip, tripping the read alert over a pineapple, Sean Manning, Congressional Baseball Fan, Chris Waterman, RHCB, and Martin Simpson.
Hey, you guys all freaking rock. And then also an amazing thank you to our executive producers, Simon Stager, Chris Waterman, and the chief, Ernesto Castagna. I finally changed the order so I didn't flip myself up because MC said I should. So there you go. Quick news. We're trying to move things along. Our Picard season 3 review, we've kept putting it off because everybody's been so busy. We're going to record that. It's going to be a pre-recorded. Next Tuesday, we actually locked down 2 really cool interviews that I don't think we can announce yet, but you'll know who they are next week, which is awesome. And then make sure to get your mailbags in. The post is there right now. And then that'll drop on Wednesday morning as a podcast audio, and then that night we'll do a live premiere on YouTube. Maybe a couple of us will be in the chat for that. So stay tuned for that. And then MC, we're going somewhere, and it's like coming up fast in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to New York Comic-Con in a couple of weeks. And there's a Star Trek panel, which we're hoping to cover, and hopefully some Star Trek people we can talk to.
Maybe.
We'll see. There's some comic people that have done Star Trek.
Yeah.
You know, we could at least say hi to them.
We can say hi.
Yeah. But yes, if you're going to New York Comic Con, say hi to us. And
I'll also say that I just sent out the Lower Decks and Picard. I almost called it TNG. Picard season 3 stickers, and we have a lot left. So we might do some posts. Come and find us, and we'll give you some free stickers and all that fun stuff. So. That's what I had before we do talk about heroes and villains. Do we have any other news that I may have missed? Giraffe, you usually have one or two things as you chug whatever is probably LaCroix, yeah? Not a LaCroix.
I'm sorry. I just came back from work. I didn't eat. I'm eating a pizza. Everybody on the chat wants to know what is the pizza I'm eating.
You at least had pizza, so I haven't had anything yet. So there's no excuses.
No, I don't think I have any news.
Yeah, not really a lot going on. That's good. It's good sometimes to not have a lot of news.
Come calm.
I love that Tara wrote that Mark
Peace.
Twain could read my limerick. She fantasized. Yes, we would love Mark Twain to read your limerick.
Yeah, his handle is Mark Twain Today.
There you go.
Looking for the
And then Jamal Taylor wanted us to let you guys know that New York City away team, a fine group of folks there. I know a lot of them. I'm friends with them. Will be at New York Comic Con as well. So there you go. Speaking of things that are happening, heroes and villains. We just made another post. We are partnered with them. They are awesome. You can get 20% off your first order there using our code STRANGE. They have amazing Star Trek tees and a bunch of other awesome fandom stuff. They have Marvel. They have Star Wars. Like their Ahsoka line, I just want to spend like $2,000 on that stuff.
Oh, yeah. I own some of their stuff and it's really good.
Yeah, it's so good. So yes, Moopsy. This is not a heroes and villains shirt. Jay Woodman in the chat knows where this. I think MC, you know where this comes from too.
Yeah.
Supported a local artist. It's Moopsy. Snack time, eating some teeth. This is not heroes and villains, but they do make good stuff.
And Hawk is wearing heroes and villains.
And Hawk is wearing his heroes and villains Enterprise hoodie,
me?
which is
No,
great. Yeah,
not me.
No. Yeah, I wish I had known. I would have worn some.
Oh, that's okay. Giraffe.
They have
yes,
a pop-up store.
Plug your thing, please.
They have a pop-up store, pop-up shop coming up, starting tomorrow until Monday in Anaheim. So if you're in Southern California, go check it out. They will have a lot of things and maybe less line than at San Diego Comic Con. So
that line that you told me about, I think you sent me a picture, was wild at Comic Con.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah, I think you're gonna go. You're right. You're gonna do some content, some fun stuff there. So maybe we'll see some pics.
I'm gonna content.
That's what you call buying more stuff that I don't really need.
That's what I'm calling. I'm calling it content, so you don't get
I might go
in trouble. When is it again, Giraffe?
Content.
No, when is the content?
That's just all you can think about now. It's just content.
It's starting on Friday and it's finishing on Monday. It's in Anaheim, West Catala Avenue. I mean, I'm sure you can find it on the internet.
Yeah,
I might, Giraffe, because I might not be able to make it if it's just this weekend. I might give you money to buy me things.
Give me money.
Money for content.
Money for content.
Money for content.
I can write it off as a tax benefit, right? Because I'll wear it as a costume for a video.
Exactly.
Boom. I love it. All right, I think that's it for news. Let's get to the strange new loop. I like the button that Eric played last week, though, when I wasn't here. He did the red alarm. I liked that. That was good for this. Red alarm.
Red alarm.
We don't need a button. We just have us. So our strange new loop this week, and YouTube Collective, let us know your answers, please, as well. From their intro in The Cage to Osira in Discovery, the Orions have a long history in Trek. Where do your guys' Orion loyalties lie? Enterprise, Disco, Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks? Where are they? Yeah, Giraffe immediately put a finger up, so hit it. Go ahead.
You know the answer. Discovery.
Yeah.
That's where my alliance with Orions lie. I think, the characters could have been developed more, but the style, the story about the piercings, the cultures in contact, the love story, people getting eaten by worms. Yes, and magnificent makeup also.
Yes, fantastic.
Fantastic makeup. So yeah, that's where I hope we're gonna see more Orions in the Academy show.
Well, and it looks like from season 5 from the trailer, right? Like we're going to see some mercantiles and we're going to see maybe a little bit into Michael's life as a courier. So that screams Orions to me, and possibly some
That's
leftover.
offensive. Oh, just because we're going to be dealing with like pirate stuff, it's just going to have to be Orion.
I'm doing it. I went there. Hey, listen, the emerald chain was not exactly the shining sparkle of. I just pulled
But
a
look,
Mariner.
the name was so badass.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it's true.
Chain, like,
Yeah.
they had everything to make it amazing. They should have spent a little bit more time. But I love the story about, like, getting the piercing behind the ear, and like all the fact that all these culture were living together and interacting together. That's what I like in Star Trek. So yeah.
Awesome. Who else? Who's got something?
I do. So I like my women and men like I like my tea green. So all Orions, every Orion, just like, I don't care where they're from. Orions, I am here for it. So
Nice.
Fair.
I like
Absolutely
it.
fair. Yeah.
Who else?
I mean, I have to say Lower Decks. I mean, it's got to be the answer for me. I mean, like, come on, Tendi. I mean, Tendi is the only one, but
Yeah.
like they've done so well between this episode and then Tendi generally doing like a good job of like breaking out like Orion culture in a really cool way. Even before this episode, just the stuff that like Tendi had little like seeded throughout, and then sort of eking into Lower Strange New Worlds in that crossover episode too. So Lower Decks has to be my affiliation, though I would give a strong second to Giraffe on Discovery, because that also like did a lot of that work as well to like fill them out in a really, really cool way, though still relegated them to pirates sometimes.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
of course, because I'm me, I do also have to give a tip of the hat to the Kelvin verse with our very first
Oh,
Orion and
Gala!
Starfleet.
Yeah,
Gala, yeah.
that's true.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. Hawk, you got
Having
one?
sex and she got
Yeah.
laid by Kirk, so yeah.
What's
Yeah.
new?
Definitely not Enterprise representation of Orions. I remember that was a really bad episode.
God.
That's a
Really, that's
horrible
just-
episode.
Yeah.
I mean, the work that this episode of Lower Decks does to like try to make that not as horrible, but still having to address it threads that needle very well.
Heavy lifting.
Yeah, heavy lifting. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it's got to be Lower Decks. I mean, like, as much as, the pirate thing is a cliche and a stereotype, and that, it's like when you get to Orion, I don't think they really care.
No.
That's their cult. That's them, to a T. We have, amazing nightclubs with non-ironic names.
What was it? Slit throat?
The slit
The
throat.
slit throat.
Yeah.
No pun needed.
Mariner's assessment of it. It shows strength.
Yeah.
Now, Lower Decks all the way.
Nice.
It is also weird. We were just thinking about it that like the Orion Syndicate technically came from Deep Space Nine, and yet we never see an Orion. in
Oh,
Deep
yeah.
Space Nine.
Yeah.
That's very true. Though I think the first time we see an Orion on Deep Space Nine is in Lower Decks.
It's in Lower Decks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Anything in the chat? Where's Baby Bear tonight? I think Matt means Eric. Oh yeah, I was gonna say Eric isn't here tonight. Eric's not gonna be here for a while. Eric is
Forgotten.
yeah, forgotten. But we made the announcement a couple of weeks ago. Eric is doing a production of Company, the Steven Sotomayor show, and he is gonna kill it. And if you're in the area, you should go see it where he lives. I'm not gonna give his address, but like if you know him in the chat, go see his show. We are super proud of him saying break a leg. He's at rehearsal for I think it's opening in like 4 weeks, so they're at the
Yeah,
the
we're
finish
probably
line.
we're probably not going to see him until November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but wishing him all
Remember,
the best with the
fuck
production.
bears.
Fuck pears.
Fuck pears.
Fuck pears. That's right.
Yeah.
Uh,
In terms of the chat, we do have the chief just yelling Lower Decks.
yeah, I mean, fair.
Which, yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
I will say Lower Decks too, not to sound, take everybody else's, and I will give a tip of the hat to Strange New Worlds, because I don't remember his name, but I loved the Orion captain in what was the season 1 episode?
Syrian Squall.
Serene Squall. I loved him.
Yeah.
He
was
like
fun.
was he a stereotypical pirate? Yes. Did he make bad food? Yes. But he seemed like a guy that if you let his guard down, you could also give him a big hug, and I liked that, and I liked him. So
I mean, it's my favorite episode of Strange New Worlds. Not for that guy, but that episode.
yeah,
is
no,
my
it's a
favorite
great
Strange New
episode.
Worlds.
It's
Yeah.
a
It's
great
an awesome
episode. Yeah.
episode. And
So-
he's awesome. He's like a bartender in Ireland.
Oh, is he? Is he not?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I get that vibe.
Oh,
I
the
can totally
actor?
see that. Yeah.
Yeah, the
I thought
actual
the-
actor.
No,
I
the
thought the
Orion.
Orion
The,
captain,
the,
he's
Giraffe,
like-
Giraffe, the Orion. Is,
The actual,
I
yeah,
was like,
dresses a
He
green
has
every
a
day.
side story, you know, where he's bartender in Ireland. I'm here for that fan fiction. Let's go.
I mean, if I was an Orion in a Star Trek episode and was also a bartender, I would probably dress up green half the time.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Anything else in the chat? Jamal says lower decks, but Enterprise did establish that the ladies are in charge, which carried through to Discovery. That is actually true. It's a bit of a stretch, but
It's worth addressing because we'll bring it up later on.
Yep.
But like, to give my mini diatribe on Enterprise's problems, what it was trying to do, it was very like this like cis dude male gazy kind of way of thinking about like talking about feminist stuff,
Yep.
which is, oh, we created the society where we objectified women because even from the very first episode of Star Trek, we had the sexy Orion slave woman. So how do we fix that? Well, we'll do it to the men. It's actually the women who are in charge, manipulating the men, and it's like, no, that's still just as bad. You're still, in fact, you make it worse because it's implied that all the men are like drugged and like forced into sex acts against their will. And as we see with like the Archer and crew. So like, not only does it just subvert stuff, and that doesn't actually like, that's not actually what feminism is not doing the same shit to men. It's actually fighting for equality for all, but it makes it worse because the men are even in worse positions because they are literally drugged. So yeah, Enterprise's use of doing that was not good.
That
Not
episode
good.
is
Enterprise,
awful.
though, gives me my favorite Orion meme. You know, it's that moment where there's that Orion who's holding T'Pol, like she's like
Is that-
made of nothing.
is that the Big Show? The Big Show, the wrestler? Is that the wrestling episode?
I don't know
No?
that. Yeah, like the
Yeah.
one where like they all captures and like
Yep.
yeah.
That's the
And
Big Show from
he takes
WWE.
T'Pol and he just like holds her and she's just like, and the meme is like when the weed gets hold of yourself, and it cracks me up every time. And that's I'm gonna give that to Enterprise. Ridiculous.
Fair. I like it. Anything else on where your loyalties lie? That was the original question, Tara. Where do your Orion loyalties lie? Which series? If you'd like to answer, I will get to yours. But we are going to go into the review of Something Borrowed, Something Green, and our roundtable order tonight will go Jessie, Giraffe, MC, Hawk, followed by myself. That is the way it'll go. With that being said, you are pirately invited. Yes,
Arr.
indeed. Arr. I should have done that at the pike. You are pirately invited. Arr. This episode
Dude, that's so offensive.
so offensive. Oh God. The episode starts with Captain Freeman informing Tendi she's been granted leave to attend her sister's wedding. Mariner and T'Lyn tag along. And with T'Lyn using or learning about the Orion, I screwed that up. She's using the excuse to go to, learn about them and brag to the Vulcan high command or try to impress them again. And when they arrive on Orion, T'Lyn and Mariner are shocked to find that Tendi is Orion royalty, right? She's like big time and a member of the 5th largest family syndicate on the planet. We've been given nuggets, right, about Tendi and like, Mistress of the Winter Constellation, that she's a lot more than we really know. But what do you think about like this reveal, right? Because she's a major player in the Orion syndicate. Jessie, your thoughts on this?
I mean, oh gosh. I mean, I will save my big thoughts on this because I have a whole rant that I will give really briefly. I'll save that for the end because it requires the full context. But I really love this episode when it comes to Tendi because of particularly how Tendi has always resonated with me as a character. Like, I love her for her personality. She embodies all of my favorite, like, Star Trek, like things that I love about Star Trek, like joy in others, like just this endless positivity, endless caring and empathy for others, just excitement at like discovering new things. And I also resonated with her in terms of her background that I'll talk about later. And so this specific reveal of like her having like being like a big deal in society, I really love because it starts to set up this arc for her of, you know, her having made the choice to join Starfleet. Like she had all the privilege in the world. She could have like, you know, lived out as like the height of society, never had to worry about anything, just, you know, done the things that she was supposed to do throughout her life, and lived fairly comfortably. But she didn't want that. She didn't want to be the thing that she was told to be, and so she chose to be in Starfleet. And I love this like reveal of like this level of privilege that she comes from that she kind of rejects. That I think was really fun. And I also love the like weird little nuggets here in the society because and again this goes to like what we were talking about in with Enterprise. Like we see that this is a very matriarchal society, but it is kind of presented in this season as like problematic, but like but like in a systemic way. Like whereas Enterprise very much and other Star Trek shows often tend to like individualize stuff where it's like, hey, you know, look, this one person is treated with as a bigot, you know, it's just this one person's a bigot or this one person's treated badly. Like we see in this scene, like the men carry the women, like it's the three and Cerritos gals, like being just carried by all men, and they're like barrel chested and like very sexy and things like that. And it's not like drawn attention. Like there's jokes about like Mariner being like, oh, look at these hot guys. But it's just a way that the world is on Orion, like the way that system works. And it just like presents the matriarchal society there, which is still a problem, as an issue without like overhitting the head. Like, look, it's a matriarchy sort of thing. Yeah. Which I really, really liked.
Nice. Yeah, agreed. Giraffe?
So first of all, I'm gonna call bullshit about Talene wanting to write a report.
Yeah, right.
I think she just wanted to join the fun, but she cannot.
She can't say it out loud, right?
Yeah, she's not there yet. Like to be like, I want to go just to have fun, but I want to go, and what reason can I give myself to go do that? Oh, I'm gonna write a report. So I'm calling bullshit from the beginning, okay? Like she was never gonna write that report. The beginning with the Orion vessel like being destroyed by the thing. I don't know what we call it.
It's called the NX-01 shuttle pod. Because that is my theory until they prove me wrong.
I mean, fair. And that's why Starfleet is letting Tandy go to the wedding, which is kind of like a new level of fucked up. Like, we're trying to not have problems, even if we have nothing to do with the thing. So
it's so
here,
Starfleet, though.
You can go to your sister's wedding. And one last thing that, again, it's my pet peeve. I'm very sorry, but the Orion invitation, like what do you call that? Like
it's a wedding invitation.
Card, like invitation, yeah. So I'm always interested in looking at like languages in Star Trek, right? And somebody, I don't remember who on Twitter translated it.
I think it was Jorg.
Oh, it's York. Yeah, you're totally right. It's York. Yeah, and it's like one-on-one translation, which means that for Orion, Orion, well, in Orion has 5 letters also. For wedding, Wedding, well, wedding has 7 letters also. So basically, it's English written in Orion alphabet. And I'm like, come on. You know, like Vulcan has its own language and it's written in Vulcan, you know, same for Romulan and same for Klingon. And I was just a bit disappointed that they didn't go like a little bit the extra mile, like to kind of like make up something and not like, you know, I don't know. But yeah, I love the fact that Tandy's royalty. I love the fact how Lower Decks can thread these like long story, and I've said that over and over again, but yeah, that's episodic, but we have these long storylines about the character that we follow through, and they've been here since season 1, and I love this, and it's so good to finally know what the hell is the Mistress of the Winter constellation and what it means. I just felt for Tandy because she so doesn't want to be there. And
It's interesting you said that though, because I think like part of her is, I think, Jesse, you were saying how like she's like a little bit like embarrassed to be there, like she really just wanted to join Starfleet and like do the science thing, which we know about her and that's what we love about her. But I got from this episode too that I think there is a part of her that does secretly like it a little bit, and like she says at the end, like it has its advantages, because like the moment like when she like gets into being the mistress of the winter constellation, I think she's liking it, and that's like when like the animators did a great job like when she blushes too, right? She's embarrassed, I think, because she does like it a little bit though, even though she loves Starfleet.
I think
I'm
that the
gonna
way
say I'm gonna
Oh.
say that like when I go back home, if I'm with somebody that knows me from here,
yes,
I am super embarrassed because I'm not embarrassed like because I'm not ashamed,
Right.
but I feel weird because I act totally differently in France than I act here because this is my country over there and my culture, and I do a lot of things. I used to do a lot of things without thinking about it, and then when you go live abroad, you realize like how many things you consider just like everyday normal stuff are just super fucking weird to the rest of the world. And it's very weird to go in and out of these
Yeah, fair.
skins, you know, and
Mm.
to explain that no, it's a normal thing. I know it's ridiculous. I know it's stupid. I know it's like weird to you, but this is normal. Just give me a second. And it's like code switching, but like with your entire body
Yeah.
all the time.
what it,
And I think without the two, she would have been more at ease.
Fair.
But having
Yeah.
the external like spectators that are here and like looking at her, that makes her feel self-conscious.
Yeah.
I think she is constantly aware of the other eyes that are in the room, and I think also part of it too is, and I think that's a lot of it. Like this whole time is like, oh yeah, she's always constantly like downplays the culture, like oh yeah, don't worry about like when we go out to the bar, things like that, as you say, Giraffe. But also I think part of it is too is like she's trying to like get through things as quickly as possible so they don't find out about her history. Like she's trying to also like trying to not out herself to, basically, and trying to hide that from her friends. I think it's just why she's sort of self-conscious. Like I don't think she hates Orion culture, she just dislikes it for herself specifically.
Yeah.
and for like just having to see it through her friends' eyes.
Draft, are you good?
Yeah.
MC.
Oh wow, there's so much I could say. First of all, this is such a great sequel to We'll Always Have Tom Paris in terms of the girls trip, because now we've got the triple threat girls trip. And one of the things that stuck out to me right away is the first thing that Mariner says to Tendi is she calls her D.
Yeah.
And in that episode, she like didn't realize what her first name was, Devana. And now it's become a nickname. And I'm like, oh, they're so close. And they're also bringing T'Lyn into this. And it is kind of so far been Tendi's plot that she wants to become, science besties with T'Lyn. So having these two together, or these three together, I'm adoring this for Tendi, because yes, a lot of her plots do have to do with her and Rutherford and whatever is going on between them. So just the fact that it doesn't occur to these ladies to invite the boys, it's just so great. And just like the small, like we had a pretty good idea as to what Tendi's backstory was, because in Here I'll Trust Nothing, she basically tells us what her backstory is. She just doesn't say it to these specific characters. She says it to Rutherford. And we get to see that she's got a Billups castle. And I'm like, and Mariner, just the thirst from Mariner in this episode. Oh my God. Just I'm living for Mariner. She's gonna have an Orion hookup at some point. Like, I mean, I'm sure she already has in the past.
She
but
gave so many eyes to so many different Orions. It was a thing of beauty. Yeah. Before you keep going, before this comment goes away, I want to read Congressional Baseball Fans comment because we're on the subject. Based on Tallinn and Mariner's commentary, I think we can confirm that they are both bisexual icons. I mean, agreed.
I mean, I think everybody's a sexual icon.
Yeah, right. In Lower Decks, absolutely.
Except for Billups, who is asexual.
Correct.
Yeah, I think the going assumption on Lower Decks is just everyone's bisexual until proven otherwise, such as Billups being asexual.
Yep, exactly. Keep going, MC.
Yeah. And that line from Mariner about this is more backstory than we've gotten from you. It kind of actually reminded me of the comment that I made about Uhura when we had Children of the Comet. And it's like, yes, this is actually more backstory than we've had for Tendi. And it's just like the absolute avalanche of information, because we find out where she lives, we find out about her parents, and I'm sorry, Bert. Chef's kiss. And these are the perfect two to go with Tendi, because Rutherford would not react at all, and Boimler would overreact.
Yeah,
because,
he would.
He's Boimler.
He would not know what to do with himself.
He would not know what to do with himself. No, not at all. He would have died.
He might have
in
died.
the first bar, he would have died.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Or end up in a dungeon.
Or
a moan dungeon.
A moan dungeon.
Picturing
the moans got me.
He would have fallen to the moans hardcore, I think.
I'm picturing
it is
Boimler
actually
in a cage.
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, because humans are clearly affected by, as we know from Enterprise, so it would have been an interesting experience for them.
Yeah, for sure. Hawk.
Not too much more I can add to it. Although I did like Hawk. I know, but I did like the mention of Billups and that, and the comparison between the two and that, because, like, in a way, the Tendi and him are a little bit similar in that they're both. It's not that they reject like their cultures and that, but both. I think that they find them just too myopic in that. They're everybody is very content to kind of stay in their lane in both their separate cultures. But obviously with Billups and with Tendi and that, there was more of a thirst, and I think it's a nice reminder that, like, they're embarrassed about their culture, but at the same time, Starfleet is the found family, and I think that was a nice way of reinforcing that. As far as the reveal of Tendi and that, it's almost not shocking at this point. When we actually do find out about her, because we've seen like how badass she is and that, but like it's that badassery of hers is not like a huge part of her component. It's like she's curious, she's loves her friends, is always positive and that, and yet all of that background is still like hardwired in there, and that the mistress of the winter constellation, and it never won't be in that, and it can be useful, but it's still not. It's just it's something she just puts on the shelf it's there when she needs it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good way to put it. I like that. Yeah, because it's come in handy for her a few times, right? Like when I think we're going to talk about it, like when she gets drafted accidentally by Ransom, right? And she's the cleaner. And when they're on DS9 and the dude's got like an Orion multi-tool, like she uses it when she needs it. And it's a really good way to put it. Yeah. There was a comment here. Oh, yes. Jamal wrote, I feel like the Daggers would have found Boimler instead of Mariner. She's second on the injury list.
Absolutely.
It's so true.
Hard to disagree.
Yeah. I want to say one more thing. I really appreciate that the Lower Deckers, all of them don't have like tragic backstory. We're speaking about backstories. Like, I mean, she has a story that is, leaving your family because you don't want to do what they want you to do, but they still love her. She still had a good relationship with everybody. You know what I mean? It's not like everybody died and I'm alone. And Boimler is the same. Boimler doesn't want to do what his family wants him to do, but, they're cool with it. And really appreciate that.
God, he's
really
royalty in his
appreciate
own way
that.
too, Boimler. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
True that.
king of the
And
raisin
Marina
farm.
too. She's Starfleet royalty, you
yeah.
know?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the closest to a tragic backstory is Rutherford.
Rutherford.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this. I love the intro. I love like everybody's already said it. I don't need to say it again. It's, you know, it's not a shock where she comes from, right? As much as like Tendi is like my favorite character on Lower Decks, like I adore her so much. I was so here for Talin's end of this, right? Because like I kept on looking at this as like, oh wow, this is like Talin's year abroad, right? Like being on the Cerritos, right? Even though she's kind of forced into the position, she didn't really want to do it, but she's there now. And she goes to Orion and like she just in the best way that she possibly can just lets her guard down, and I love it. And there's so many subtle ways the animators like show that when the three pirate dudes come down and swoop them up, right? Mariner's giving eyes, but Talin also is like, there's a tiny smirk on her face. She's like,
Yeah.
she's here for everything. And I love her journey throughout this episode too. And like kind of like that reveal starts here as well. I love who just said it about the fact that they like she loves her like Giraffe, like she loves her family still, right? Like they're not on bad terms, right? Like it seems like they're actually on very good terms. So I really do like that a lot. We're gonna talk about it here in a second, but I'll just say it now anyway. I also like that, you know, we keep saying this just wasn't like, you know, a shocking reveal. And then of course when her mother goes like, oh, by the way, your sister got kidnapped, she's just like, oh no, really? I can't believe it. It's like nothing's a shock to her, right? Like
Yeah, well, I love that it's like a part of the ritual that like Orion's get kidnapped with every wedding. It's like this is only weird because it's happening at the wrong moment in the wedding tradition, but it's part of the wedding tradition.
Yeah.
And by the way, in Greece, like not now, but like a long time ago, like people used to do that, like ritual, like kidnapping. And I remember the great grandmother of one of my friends, like she was like 100. I'm not kidding. When I was there like 20 years ago, and oh my god, yeah, 20 years ago, yeah. And she was telling me, my husband, he kidnapped me, and I was like, what? And she was like, no, it's normal. It's part of the wedding, and that made me think of this so bad. So I was like, okay, I see you, Orion's Greek, same stuff.
Yep. Let's keep talking about that, right? Because Tendi learns from her parents that the part of the reason she's been brought here is because Erica has been kidnapped, and it was after, what was it? It was before Save the Dates, but it was after invitations.
After the invitations, yeah.
So that's when it was a problem. So yeah, this is like we said, like normal Orion wedding tradition. Tendi is kind of tasked to track her sister down, and keeps getting referred to, right, as we all know her to be, the mistress of the winter constellation. We first hear this when they do the girls trip, right, and Mariner's wearing the fall screen, and it's like, oh, mistress of the winter constellation. I love that episode. Mariner and Talin also just like notice every little thing, right? Like they keep just like revering her, and the bouncers at the guard, by the way, props to the animators again, because those dudes had the little knobs like from Enterprise. Not the you know, when the big show had the little knobs.
Yeah, talk about the Orion dudes knobs, it's fine.
Yeah, the dude knobs. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, Orion dude knobs. They're phallic-y. They're not phallic-y. I guess they could be. So they keep noticing this, right? From the bar scene, right, to the pheromone sex dungeon. How are these scenes for you guys and Tendi, right? Like we've kind of talked about this already, like being uncomfortable, showing her, you know, we learned that she's a prime, but like her pirate side, Jessie.
Okay, many things here. I still am putting a pin in my big rant, which will come up in our next bullet point. Cool. But mini rant here. First off, the like spider drinking game thing.
Murder
spider game, best thing ever. I love that to death. It was the like most metal thing I've ever seen in Star Trek. I am so here for it. I love the bar that we get to see. That's just again sort of like just like dudes dancing around. We get to see the woman running it. But the thing that I found very fascinating and so interesting on many levels was the Moan dungeon, because yes, it's like, oh look, we're going to a sex dungeon essentially. But again, this is where I think this episode threaded threaded the needle of having to deal with the bullshit of enterprise really, really well. Because it is clear, again, we are dealing with a matriarchal society that does put men into, they do drug men with their pheromones, and it is intensely problematic. And yet it's kind of framed as a like drug problem that the women are sort of like feeding the men, and like men go there, but it kind of gives the men a little bit more agency in it. And it's still fucked up, as we know, like how people use drugs in our society is often like funded by like the vilification by our government of people using drugs, as well as, you know, the criminal element and things like that. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to drugs. And so there's still a problem with it. It's not a good thing in their society, and it still speaks to the matriarchal nature of Orion society, but at least kind of like works a little bit better than this very sexual assaulty, for to use the very like easy term for it, because I could use another word that would be not good for YouTube. Those vibes of enterprise, it is super problematic. And here it's still a problem, but makes it, number one, more interesting, number two, make more sense, and number three, still like be a thing that we could talk about as a problem within Orion society that I just found really fascinating. And then the other thing too that I want to mention with this scene that I'm just going to put a pin in, because we're going to come back to it in my rant in the next bit, but I just want to put a pin in that it is made very, very clear in the scene that Tendi does not have pheromones. She says, I choose not to use pheromones. And then later on is even more established that the leader, the woman in charge of the dungeon, says she doesn't have them. And she never needed them because she just had people stricken. And I love Marina's line, you strict people, right, or whatever it was. It was a great line. So I loved that line, but we'll put a pin in that note that Tendi does not have pheromones, because I will come back to it. Anyways, that's my mini rant.
To continue on what you're saying, also, the dungeon mistress says, all I have is my moan, and it tells you also that she's locked into that situation. That's it's all that she has, and she is not part of a syndicate. She's not like the fifth wealthiest house of like, so she's also stuck into that that sex worker position. She doesn't seem to have anything else. So yeah, there's a lot of that's interesting to see a world that is not post scarcity, like Mariner says, but a world that's struggling also with matriarchy for their on Orion, and also maybe a lack of resources, a lack of options for people, lack of opportunity for people, because you see that the girl who was with Tendi in high school runs the
bar. She runs the bar.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, and the fact that everybody's surprised that Tendi went to high school also is like kind of messed up. But I really identify with Tendi on this because, well, you know, Americans have such like a strict, like a made up idea about what France is. For example, like everything is so romantic.
I think you ride on baguettes and
and
poodles,
Frenchmen,
right?
and like the French accent, and all that like made up romanticism or whatever. Like you know, everything is so good, everything's so beautiful, and when I go there with Americans, it's always kind of like embarrassing to me also, because it's always like exactly like these two in the episode who are like so absolutely like enthralled by like everything going on and think everything is so Orion and everything is so exciting, and Tenny is just like, yeah, you know, it's always weird with people like you went to high school with, and I was like, yeah.
It's oh, sorry. Yeah. I was just gonna say something that you just mentioned that made me think. It's like we do have a matriarchy, but there's just clearly still class stratification, because Tendi is rich, and then you do see like her high school friend owns a bar, so she's like less than up than her, but she still has like she's still decently well off. And then you meet the sex worker, and she is sort of like shoved into using drugs, which reminds me of like how, you know, many people turn to selling drugs because it's all they have. Like we vilify people selling drugs as like a criminal element in our society, but often people who are racialized or in lower economic spaces in America are forced into those situations where they have to do that in order to try and make some money and, you know, do stuff. So it's like it's sort of talking about that like class set of like not every woman is at like the head of society.
Yeah.
You still have a class stratification even within like women being ahead. It just adds nuance to it in a really cool way. Like we live in a patriarchal world in America, but like not all men are like doing well economically. Usually better than women, but not always. You know.
And that's what I was like talking about. And the other thing that's interesting then is why Tandy chose to leave that world to go to the Federation. Because like if tomorrow you tell me there's a place where it's post scarcity and you can just go and be anything you want, depending on what you're able to do and what you want to do, I'm like, yeah, sign me up. I'm out like right away. But what is also interesting about Tandy is that she is part of the elite. She is part of the very, very wealthy elite, and she still chooses to leave that world where basically she's on top, where she could also have like changed things. You know, she could have been like impulse to maybe use money to help people. I don't know, but
make an Orion Science Academy, which we know there maybe is because that was an Orion science ship in.
And maybe that's what she's gonna do in the long run. I hope that's what she's gonna do, and maybe she'll be instrumental to Orion joining the Federation. Who knows? Like Spock.
Well,
you
it's not nothing that we've seen Orions in Star Trek, right? It's not like we have Tendi.
Starfleet, you mean?
Sorry. Well, yes, I did mean Starfleet. Thank you.
He's drunk.
I'm not gonna lie. I am.
Oh wow!
Like, look at that drink.
And there is another one coming. No, in Starfleet, because we have Tendi, obviously. We have. I apologize. I don't remember his name from here. I'll trust nothing. But the Orion who Mesk. Thank you. And then it's not for nothing, but we actually see Orions on board the Titan in the beginning of Picard. So I think it's a good sign that Orions are like, I don't have to be a pirate, and I don't have to do these Orion things that like we're so synonymous for. I like that, and I think it's a great point. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It reminds me of Angel One, but a much better version. Like Angel One was a similar thing of Enterprise in The Next Generation, where it's like, oh, what if it's a major society, but women do the same thing to men, and it was a very shallow look at that. It was a very bad episode of season one, and like this potentially, if Lower Decks or some other future Star Trek series wants to pick up this thread of Orion stuff, it's like now they have a good basis to like actually talk about matriarchal society in a way that can parallel our own society and how it like what they would have to change to be able to fit into a society like the Federation, but in a way that's much more nuanced than, hey, women get to treat men badly and objectify Riker,
Yeah. Yep. Angel One is fucking awful.
It is a bad episode.
So bad. Oh my god. People are talking in the chat about rewatching the horrible Orion Enterprise episode. I think we're going to do it after the pod. I think we should watch Angel 1 too and just watch bad episodes all night. MC, go ahead. Your thoughts on this?
First of all, it wasn't just a joke in the introduction. I want to make all of the cosplay.
Yes.
Like actually at this moment, like I am warring with myself. Do I want to make Tendi or do I want to make T'Lyn? Like, because both of their undercover outfits are just chef's kiss. But more importantly, when it comes to Tendi in this, I love seeing this war within herself where she is doing the Orion thing, but then immediately backtracking or trying to like play it off with her friends because she doesn't want them to, know what she is, even though they obviously already know. And it has been mentioned like this is what you're like when you go back home. And obviously with her, she's meeting up with somebody that, she went to high school with. I think in How I Met Your Mother, they called it Revertigo.
Oh, yeah.
And there is that line where it's like, oh, we should go get, lunch. And she's like, I'm not going to call her. Absolutely perfect. This is exactly how you act when you go home and you run into people that you grew up with. But with Tendi, you do have this added thing of apparently Tendi's flayed people.
Okay, so you're not the only one who believes that she probably has flayed a couple of people, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. All right. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Who amongst us hasn't flayed somebody?
A little flaying every now and then never hurt anybody.
It happens. The best
Yeah.
of us.
I want to know what the hell is going on.
And the fact that Tendi has given all of this up, I can totally see that, because Hawk compared Tendi to Billups. These are characters who had just total privilege, and but their lives were entirely set out for them, and that's not what people like. I mean, if things are handed to you on a silver platter, but you're expected to do exactly what people tell you to do, you're going to want to think about it. Do I really want to do that? So both of them are like, no, I really like science, and I want to, study science, which, while we do have the Orion scientists and those old scientists, I mean, they were scientists in quotation marks. I mean, they were still pretty piratey.
They were
because
scientific
they stole
pirates.
the full thing.
They stole
They
the
just
they stole it to
portal.
study it. They stole it to study it. They stole it to study it.
Yeah.
Right.
But then they took the grain. Were they going to study the grain?
I mean, the
Orion
grain
British
might
Museum.
be
Orion
bountiful.
British Museum.
Oh man.
And the fact that in that one, when they finally get called scientists, like, that's all I ever wanted. I think it's because they weren't really scientists, they were pirates. So it is something with Tendi, and obviously something that is in her family blood, because her grandmother was on that ship, which might be something that sticks with her
Yep.
throughout the years. And it's like, I want to study science instead. And her being basically a celebrity is just, I'm so interested in this. It almost like explains like her absolute terror at meeting Mesk in Here I'll Trust Nothing, because he's like, Tendi, that sounds familiar. She was like crapping her pants going, it's like, oh,
I never
shit.
thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
He's heard
it's
me.
interesting.
Yeah.
And also Tendi has had many orgies, just absolutely saying, like,
I'm going to talk
so
about
many.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, she has.
But she's so smart, because she comes into this place with anti-pheromones that she's obviously had like forever, because she didn't know she was going to need them, because they were on this journey. She's just like, if I'm going to Orion, I'm probably going to need anti-pheromones.
Yeah.
And it did come in handy. And the idea that Tendi, who I know we're all in love with, like, believe me, I am desperately in love with Tendi, but she is not like she's a sweet person that you're in love with, and that men fall down at their feet, just, she stricks them. If there's as much as we've seen from Tendi, I think I would really like a flashback episode of her being the mistress of the Winter Constellation.
I would adore it. Yeah.
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 But that might just be like my kink. So.
I actually don't. Maybe.
Also, what I'm going to talk about. Hawk.
First up, I don't know if Tendi has actually flayed anybody, but I believe the bartender was just acknowledging
RHCB also thinks that she's flayed people. She definitely has, they say in the chat.
I think the bouncer was just acknowledging her right as the mistress of the Winter Constellation to flay him, and that for his disrespect. And that I don't know if she'd actually flayed anyone. But yeah, it's like Jessie said, in that there's so much really to just dissect in this episode, and that as far as like the Orions, like their number one economy is crime, as far as I can tell, and that the 5 families that they were talking about aren't so much like people who are off in the shadows, and that they're people who are the most popular in the spotlight, and that and it got me thinking about like the Godfather level of crime versus like Mean Streets level of crime, and that we get to see like Tendi's family in that who are pretty much the Corleones in this world.
I was gonna say like the Sopranos of them, right? Like a little bit.
I think
maybe a bit above the Sopranos. Yeah,
definitely above. But then like you get down into the mean streets, and that it's like there are people just stuck in a particular grind, and that because an economy based on crime is just about paying the person above you, so that's all what you're really doing is just grinding out a living on that, just trying to stay with your vig each week.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that a person, that someone like Tendi, who's obviously some kind of a prodigy in that, it manages to escape that. I kind of view her as like one of those kids in that who's like parents put them to piano lessons and that in the hope that they become a classical pianist. Obviously very talented, right? And that, but by the end of it, they're probably going to go into a rock band, because that's where their passions lie. Tendi is great at being the mistress of the winter constellation, but it's not where her passions lie. And it's nice to see her flip those kind of expectations in that, like especially in the bar in that, where the thralls are supposed to, beat her up, and she's supposed to have some epic fight scene with them in that. What does she do? She sciences her way out of it. And threatens to, basically to shut down this woman's entire living in that, with the rest of the hypo spray.
Orion Ursula.
Yeah, Orion Ursula. That's a good one.
Yep.
I don't know if I had any more points. I think I'm good.
Cool. Someone said it way above, and the chat is hopping tonight, like we mentioned already. So I will say it again. You guys already talked about like Tendi's feelings, and I want to quickly talk about what this episode did for like talking openly, like MC just mentioned, like talking openly about like kinks and sex, right?
Mhm.
Because this episode does it really well. And listen, like I don't care who the fuck you are, everybody's got a fucking kink, and like sometimes, and I apologize if I'm calling people out. It's not my intention, and I respect you. Like if you want to not talk openly about sexuality or if you don't, but sometimes I feel like the Star Trek community could be a little bit like, I don't know.
It's reflective of America's puritanical nature, right?
Mhm.
Like here in the United States, we are a very like puritanical society, going back to like the settlers, like the Quakers, like all that stuff, like coming over here and it being a very like puritanical religious based country. Not to say that there aren't cultures outside of that in the United States, but like that's what it's rooted within very often, and that even seeps out even to people who aren't like deeply part of like some religious background. And so what Gene Roddenberry, he had many of his problems, but he always tried to do with Star Trek was be very open and forward about sex, and be like, sex is a normal part of life, we should do it, we should talk about it, it's how we interact with each other, because often by not talking about sex, by making it taboo, it's often how we like in our society becomes like a political thing, and causes like sexual frustration that then gets taken out in very violent ways or political ways on other folks. And so I think it's important to talk about sex in a very open way. And often even sometimes I think in some modern Star Trek series, and even in like Voyager to a degree and Enterprise at times, got very like, oh, we don't really want to talk too much about sex, or we'll talk about it in a very male-centric viewpoint. Strange New Worlds kind of does that. Picard kind of does that as well as the show. So I think, Discovery is a little bit better about it, especially in later seasons. I mean, Burnham and Book, like there's some hot stuff going on there. But like Lower Decks is always been very open about sex, playful with sex, funny with sex, but also like understanding consent within sex as well. And so I think it does like a really good job at discussing those elements, and I think it's a necessary part. And there are going to be people who get all uptight. Here's what Star Trek has become, and I think like yes,
and that's what drives me crazy.
Always been.
And I have to say, Jesse, I'm gonna throw some love and toot your own horn here for a second. Like I love your like Star Trek sex video. It's one of my favorite videos you've done. Because like I feel like you're talking about our country right now. Like I feel like we've regressed so much like sexually as a country, right? Like it doesn't get talked about openly. And I fucking love this episode just being like all these people have these kinks and they're totally cool. Like the line about the knots, like how many knots have you tied? It's brilliant. Like I love it. Like Mariner giving like these looks, Tendi liking, what did they call it? The bath, the cage bath, like
oil bath.
Yeah, oil bath, cage bath. Like it's cool, and they talked about it, and I really like we keep talking about how Tendi's like struggling with like her Orion side and like being a bit embarrassed by it because she's home, but like there's things that she obviously loves about being home, and one of those things is like Orion pleasure, and that's cool. Like the fact that Lower Decks does continue to talk about this, like I got a lot of that. out of this episode. So I wanted to talk about that real quick.
Yeah,
that's what I got.
It's why it's why I argue of all the Star Trek shows, it is arguable that Lower Decks is the most political. Not in a very overt, like didactic way that we kind of think Star Trek is often, but in a lot of like the ways it depicts its world, it is very, very forward in a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. It was a cage shower, not a cage bath. Thank you, chat.
Cage shower.
It was the oil bath and the cage shower.
Yep,
Okay.
and not tying. I want to see all of this on Orion. So Tendi finally tracks down her sister, or rather, her sister tracks her down. Jesse's so ready to go. I love it. I know. It turns out Erica kidnapped herself, because that sounds about right. So we learned that Tendi was the prime of her family, right? She was trained to be the top tier assassin, which, listen, we've seen Assassin Tendi. She's very good at it. The cleaner makes a lot more sense now, but she didn't want to do it, right? Like she says in the stuff, like, I love science. I wanted to join Starfleet. The two fight it out, right? And it turns out Erica did want to be prime, because they're fighting, because like, you left me, and like I had to take up your mantle. And Tendi's like, but didn't you want it? And Erica's like, yes, of course I wanted it. But as we've learned from everything that we've seen in this episode, Tendi is revered on Orion. Like, that's a lot to live up to, even if you want all of her. I mean, for lack of a better term, like, she wants Tendi's clout a little bit, right? But she was again, like saying, like, intimidated by just like how good Tendi was. Thoughts on the climax of this A plot, and them kind of dueling it out, and then coming together and going back to the wedding. And I'm gonna read it out loud. I don't care if it's in the show notes. Jessie put, "Be prepared for Jessie Rantier," and I am ready.
All right,
I'm ready.
I will try and keep this quick. As best I can, but I need to
Lies.
Lies. This is exactly why this episode meant absolutely so much to me, and I was literally jumping up with joy for it. As I said before, and I'm going to pull out the pins that I stuck in earlier. As I said before, Tendi has always been one of my favorite characters in all of Star Trek. Like, the moment I saw her, I fell in love with her because of who she is. Like, she's exuberant. She's like just loving. Like, the moment that I just loved with her, which when Rutherford lost his memory, and she's like, "Oh, we get to meet each other all over again." Like, it's just this exuberance to getting to know people and caring about people and being willing to like throw down for anyone who doesn't treat her friends correctly. Like, she will destroy some people. She will turn into a giant scorpion. So like, she evokes like the spirit of what I love about Star Trek and who I want to be as a person. But on top of that, the other things that I've resonated with her is I've always gotten these vibes from her of being either explicitly trans or a transgender allegory, because she has a dead name, as we learned in previous seasons, the Mistress of the Winter Constellation, that she doesn't like people to use. She has mentioned that she does not have pheromones, which a lot of the cisgender Orion women do have, and this episode confirms that she does not have those pheromones. So it's like, did she transition at some point that's why she like doesn't have pheromones, because doesn't have that as part of her sex characteristics, because she was born assigned male at birth? Like, those are all things that I just sort of vibed with. And then this episode actually takes that type of story and makes it like part of her textual background, not necessarily about gender, but in a way about how, in a queer ethos. What I like to talk about when I do like queer analysis of things is, like, when we talk about queer ethoses of characters and stories, it's not to say these characters are actually bisexual or actually gay or actually trans within the narrative. They can be. But what I'm actually more speaks to is people who are told that they should be one thing by society, be straight, be this gender, and actually say, "Oh, I don't want to be that way." So in this episode, we learned that quite literally, in the trans community, we say you're assigned female at birth, assigned male at birth, but then you transition away from that. Tendi was literally assigned assassin at birth, and she chose to go and be something else. She's like, I was great at it. I kicked ass as the Mistress of the Winter Constellations, but I chose to be like, this is not who I am, and I'm going to defy the expectations that were placed upon me since birth, and go and choose my own path forward for myself in Starfleet. And for me, that resonates because, like, I was seen as a boy for the beginning of my life, and I even became an Eagle Scout. I won the best boy. I was the top assassin, for being a boy, and I still was like, no, this doesn't fit me. I want to go and it's not like I was a didn't fit the role of a man, but it wasn't who I was. So I resonated with all of that. And I also want to just point out Two, the subtle ways that this theme is just woven throughout this episode. The very first scene where they are doing stuff where they're all in the sort of like workroom or whatever, and Tandy's like, "Oh, we finished all of our stuff. We actually got our work done early because we're lieutenants now," and they don't have anything to do. And T'Lyn says it is illogical to celebrate a lack of purpose. And the one thing that you often hear when you talk about like people who are the bigotries that you put against, you know, trans people, queer people, is often like you're defying your purpose. You're not being a good boy. You're not defining your purpose as a good boy. You're not, you know, going to be able to have kids or be a straight person. Like you're not defining your purpose as defined by society. So that line where T'Lyn says it is illogical to like celebrate a lack of purpose is actually the show sort of like subtly hinting at this theme of like, yes, it's actually a good thing to celebrate, like not like being seen how you're supposed to be of use for society. You can be something on your own terms outside of how you're supposed to fit what people are telling you to do. So like that theme is just woven throughout this episode, and it speaks to, and this is my final point, I promise, it speaks to like the reason that I love Lower Decks in contrast to, you know, my big criticisms of Strange New World season 2. Did a whole long video Strange New World season 2, so go watch that video for my deeper thoughts. But my biggest
was there
my biggest critique of season 2 of Strange New Worlds, and I liked Strange New World season 2. There are elements I liked about it. My biggest critique of the season as a whole was how much it was about like this veneration of Starfleet giving people purpose. Like you know, you had I am Ortegas, I fly the ship, and she was only defined by her function. People saying, you know, the last song of the season was, we know our purpose is to protect the mission. It's like, no, the way I like Starfleet, the way I like to talk about Star Trek and Starfleet is not a thing that is there to give you purpose. It is there to be a way for you to be your best self, for you to enable who you want to be. And it's what Lower Decks has always understood about, like, you know, Rutherford in season 1 being like, I want to try out this thing. And he's like, nah, security's not for me. And everyone's like, hey, that's awesome. Like Lower Decks understands that core ethos of Trek, that Star Trek should be about like people being able to be their best selves and society being there to uplift them, finding that. And this episode nailed that. And it made me resonate even more with Tendi, not because she is explicitly trans, though there are definitely hints that she could be actually trans within the canon of the show, but because her story exudes a trans and queer ethos to its core. And I just love it. And this episode literally means the world to me. Thank you for attending my TED Talk.
I loved it. No, I loved it. And also I love that you brought up Rutherford getting like trying out all the different things, because that's also in last week's episode, right? Like Starfleet celebrating, like, you know, actual accomplishments, right? Like Rutherford being able to just ask for the promotion because he deserved it, not having to go through fucking hoops to do it. Like, yeah. I know that's an absolutely wonderful point. So I love it. I absolutely
love this episode today. It is legitimately, it's gone on one of my favorite episodes.
It's my favorite episode of the season, and probably one of my favorite episodes of Lower Decks. Yeah. I just want to be Giraffe before you go. I want to read congressional baseball fans going on what you were saying, Jesse. Wow, I also became an Eagle Scout, and now I'm non-binary, and I know how to tie so many knots.
Exactly. See, I could never tie knots. I did not get that merit badge. I still got Eagle, but I was bad at the knots.
I did sailing in middle school, and I can't tie a knot for shit, so I get it. Giraffe.
So to continue on what Jesse was saying, I don't know if I said it on the pod, but very interestingly, Strange New World season 2 had a very poor reception in Europe because it was considered too American. And a lot of the thing that people didn't like was this. It's that utilitarianism that you see in America, that you need to be busy, you need to have work, you need to do things, you need to have a purpose, which is very American, right? In Europe, it's totally acceptable to do shit nothing when, you know, like nobody's going to answer your email at like 7 p.m. or like during break. Like, fuck no, I'm not working right now. This is my life, right? So there's not this cult of work in Europe that, you know, you work because you need money to live and not the opposite. So it's interesting that Lower Deck does that very well. And I think that's why that show also resonates with people from different culture that have not obsessed with work like the US. this is the most obsessed with work like culture I've ever lived in. I lived in Japan.
I did not know that you lived in Japan.
I did a little bit.
She's lived everywhere.
I know.
Yeah.
I just didn't know Japan.
Throw
Turkey,
a
for
dart at a
God's
board
sakes.
and you'll find a place that giraffe lived. Yeah.
But
You're Carmen San
this is-
Diego, aren't you?
I'm not. I'm everywhere. But it's the same thing with sex. Like I wanted to add something about sex, but then we
go
continued. I know time. But the thing is, yeah, the US is very prude compared to Europe, that's for sure. But sex is such a weapon here, and this is a place where everybody is so sexualized against their will again and again and again and again. And it's such also a tool of dominance here. Like it's used as a power trip. It's used as affirming your own value all the time in the US, way more than in Europe, in my opinion, where you can do whatever work you want and nobody really like cares. Like it's not, nobody cares who the president is.
Are you
fucking
saying that
in
I
Europe.
can move to Europe and actually get paid to do this show?
Pay to do that show?
This show.
I was
this
I was
show.
speaking about sex, but sure.
Oh, okay.
There's lots of people that pay for that show.
Let's go. Show us your feet.
Show us your
I'm
Ryan
only showing
knobs.
teeth tonight. I'm
Take a
sorry.
rang
No,
down.
sorry.
Show us your
Um,
Orion knobs, Julian.
The
And that's the
Orion knobs
thing-
are not showing tonight. Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. Sure,
And that's the
sure.
thing in lower decks is that sex is not a weapon. It's not self-accomplishment. It's not value. Like, for example, Boimler is not interested in all these women who are clearly like throwing themselves at him.
Yeah.
And it's fine. It's not, nobody calls him an idiot. Nobody is,
Belittles
telling him
him.
he's wrong. His value as a man is not defined by how many women he can score. And that's where Lower Deck is really, for me, showing the post-scarcity world where everybody's bisexual. Nobody, their own value is decided by really what they want to do and who they are and where they want to go. And I think that's very beautiful. And I think that's the only show in Star Trek actually doing it.
Mhm.
And they moved also in, I think it's also the show that is the less American culturally. I mean, it's still American, it's an American show, right? But
No, but I know what you're saying. Yeah.
who for other cultures they still can recognize their value because the values that Lower Decks are preaching are so universal somehow, like self-accomplishment, and if you don't want to work, don't work, it's fine. The faniente is a
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, I don't remember what was the question.
No, no, you did fine. And I just want to
Yeah,
talk
I
about what
blame
you're
Jessie.
saying. Blame Jesse. We can blame Jesse. It's
fine. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
Someone
yeah.
always gets blamed
This
on this
is
podcast for
transphobic,
something.
all right? I see how it is. I see how it is. You transphobe? No.
Are you f***ing kidding me?
Racism everywhere.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my god. I just want to touch on something you're saying because I know that I rave about Picard a lot, right? But like you're talking about how this Lower Deck shows maybe the post, like no money world, post scarcity world. And one line in Picard that always throws me off is, even though I love Shaw and I love the moment, is when he's talking about like admirals having a higher pay grade. It's such like an out of place line because there's not supposed to be money, but you're talking about admirals who are getting paid more than you. Like, it's such a stupid little thing, but like when we're talking about Star Trek and you have Picard's line in First Contact, like money doesn't mean anything to us anymore. And then you have like Shaw talking about that. For whatever reason, that line always threw me off. So good point, Giraffe. Yep. Do you have anything else? You good?
No, I mean,
Good.
yes, but
Yes,
like,
I know.
I mean, we have stuff to do, so let's
We do.
go.
We
It's
haven't
got
even
the
talked about the
MC.
B plot yet. MC.
Yeah, I know. I do declare.
I do indeed.
Oh,
Told you we get back there. Go ahead, MC.
So when I saw the line about be prepared for Jesse's rant here, I was so looking forward to it because I am such a big fan of your videos. I knew exactly where you were going. And the idea of Tendi as either allegorical or just straight up a
Or
trans
both, yeah.
character
Yeah.
is not something that I had ever considered before. But when you mentioned it, I'm like, do you know what? That makes a lot of sense. It is not, I know a lot of people will be like, oh, you just want the character you like to be like you. And it's like, no, it's the other way around. It's, you see parts of a character, and I really like that reading. And it would not shock me.
Oh, sorry. I didn't cut you off. Sorry.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if it happened, and I'd here for it.
Yeah. I mean, it goes to the same thing that, like, to keep this brief, like the shit that happened over the summer with this Spider-Verse stuff, because there was such a big pushback when trans people saw themselves in Spider-Gwen and was like, oh, she's not trans just because she has trans colors behind her and there's a trans flag in her room and her dad has a trans flag. It's like, yes, there are these little signifiers that say, like, yes, she might be trans. But ultimately, that's regardless of the point that why trans people are resonating with her. Trans people are resonating with her because they see themselves in her story of like being a Spider-Woman and her dad not seeing her, turning her away, and then her having to come out to him. Like, that's what trans people are resonating with. And the like trans flag in a room was like a nice like nod to that. But that's what trans people are actually resonating with. But there was such backlash against that because people were like, how dare a trans narcissist read themselves into a story that's not for them? Spider-Man has to be a white dude all the time.
I gotta say, I'm so happy that I've curated my Twitter enough where I didn't see most of that. I definitely saw it, but for the most part, I was able to skip by it. But it's such fucking bullshit because, like, listen, and I know you're saying like that's just like the kind of the tip of the iceberg with it, but like just seeing the colors there was enough. Like, I'm not trans, I'm not part of the LGBTQ community. Like, I'm an ally, but like, I don't get it as much. Like, I don't like sometimes see all the symbolism, but like that just was so huge. And I'm glad that I didn't have to see so much of the backlash, because even for me, like it meant a lot. So yeah. Keep going, MC. Sorry.
And I'm also so glad that you mentioned the cleaner in here, because I actually think the cleaner is a very important point to bring up. It shows Tendi really does enjoy doing this, because if you watch that scene, she is having a ball. So the whole Mistress of the Winter Constellation, she might not like the whole ceremony, the whole role, but she does like some of the stuff that she does. She just doesn't want to do it like that. She wants to do it on her own terms.
It's the same thing with me, like being trans. Like, I love Boy Scout stuff. I don't want to do it as a boy, but I like Boy Scout stuff a lot. So, yeah.
She had so much fun, right?
She really
like,
did.
she didn't have to take out those Romulans, but she did.
But
right?
don't you think it's a question of value that when she had to do it on Orion, it was like for the Syndicate, it was like that mob stuff, like Hawk was saying, and maybe she was not aligned with the reasons or the purpose of what she was doing and why she was doing it. She still loves her family, but you can, be like thinking you're not aligned anymore with the values of your family. But when she does it for Starfleet, there's a reason and there's a purpose that she feels is right. So
I mean, it's about you being able to choose for yourself, right? Like, I hated wearing suits before I came out as trans. Like, I despised it because it was like, oh, this is the thing you have to wear. And now I love wearing suits because it's a choice that like, I think I look good in suits, but it's a choice that I make for myself, as opposed to like, oh, this is the thing you're relegated to.
Yeah. That's funny that you mentioned suits with all the bullshit going on, not to go too deep into politics, going on in Congress and locally with John Fetterman, like, oh, you have to wear a suit on the floor of Congress because that's American values. Like, fuck off. That's a whole nother thing.
Well, it speaks how gender is essentialized.
Exactly.
People seem to make it seem like it's natural. It's like, oh, this is a way a woman has to dress, as if clothes are biology.
Yes,
or whatever.
exactly. Clothes do not. Yeah. Hawk. Oh, sorry, MC, you weren't done. I'm sorry.
MC.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Sorry, keep interrupting, MC. Apologies.
Yeah. And just with Tendi and Teherica, this whole sibling dynamic is really important. As somebody who has several siblings, I certainly understand the idea of always thinking the other sibling is the favorite. Or, the other sibling is the one who is doing what mom and dad want them to do. And so there's like this, kind of rivalry, but not there. But there's also this this connection between them. Like
Mhm.
you could see with both of them how much they care about each other. I
Yeah.
mean, like, but they had this drawing of them together, and it lays out exactly what they want, because Tendi is in the Starfleet uniform and Erica is holding the sword, which I'm pretty sure that's actually the Winter Constellation.
Mm.
That's my theory.
I love that.
That's actually really
I love
cool.
that.
I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, because if you look at it, it's got kind of a
It
constellation
does, like
pattern
on
it.
the blade. Yeah.
Yeah, so because we still don't know what the term Mistress of the Winter Constellation means, so
Listen,
that's what I'm
people
deciding
love
it
to
is.
name their swords, so
Yeah. But yeah, you could see how, like, going all the way back, these were the roles that they absolutely wanted for themselves, but they were forced into, I don't know what Erica was going to do if she wasn't going to be the Prime. I guess that she's this, the heir and a spare type situation, or maybe just like part of Tendi's entourage.
Well, probably if we're going by that, like, yeah, entourage, or like she'd be Tendi's second or something like that. Yeah.
And it's like, it just leads me to like so many questions about that too, right? Like, I'm like, there's another episode you could do on this planet of coming back here of like, it looks like Tendi's family is like chill about her choosing a different path. And not wanting to be the Mistress of the Winter Constellation. What if like another like the fourth house of the Orion Syndicate is like, oh, you let your daughter not be the Prime? Oh, that's ridiculous. You're lesser family, for that, and being like, just judgmental about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think her dad is a lot cooler about it than her mom is. Just the impression that I got. Bert seems pretty cool, and he's just like, get the shit out of my house.
I couldn't help but think of T'Pring's parents in charades,
Star Trek
right?
Cool
I
Dad.
can see that. Yeah.
Very similar. Yeah.
I mean, cool dads, but we don't call the bullshit of their wives, so that's bullshit.
Well, yeah, true. Fair.
Hawk.
Hawk. It's been
Thank
like
you,
an
Hawk.
hour since we've heard from you. We love you.
What was the question again?
Oh my God, no, that's a good point. What was the question?
I told you. I apologize.
What did you think about the
apologize.
What did you think about
You know
the
what?
climax of the A plot? That's the question. The fight, the recovery of I can't even remember her name. That's how long we've been going. To Erica.
First up, Jessie, Giraffe, MC. Those were all beautiful readings of Tendi, and I totally agree with your points. There's not a lot I can add on top of it, and that I liked how there was like this weird tension with the sisters, and that really wasn't right, because it wasn't like Tendi or Devana abandoned the family, abandoned the sister to these tasks, and that she knew since childhood that it's like to Erica would have been a great Prime, and to Erica wanted to be a Prime. She just got a little stage fright in that when the wedding coming up and that, because like more responsibilities would have opened up in that, and she was worried that she wouldn't live up to it. But Tendi always knew that she was she had that, and I love that. It wasn't tragic. It was just just a bit of sibling, just siblings working their stuff out. What else did I have to say? Like you guys have covered it. It's pretty great. Also, although the read on her family and that, I think her family's pretty cool. Even the mother.
I think they're good people, right? Like I think they're like I'd go for dinner there and probably have a good time.
They're pirate syndicate.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's good in whatever metric you can measure it in as far as Orion culture. But I didn't detect like any notes of like disdain from the mother or that regarding like Tendi and her choices and that. I think she's cool with it, and like especially at the end when the daughter showed up together in the stolen spaceship, and that it's like accomplices with tears in her eyes, like you would have,
Yeah.
I wonder
I
how
would
much
even- I would
Tendi
even-
is
I
making
would have
up.
had-
The prop, like, sometimes kids they imagining their parents have like this high expectation, or like they have expectation but that there's no other way for them to be different, when actually it's cool. It's like, it's fine, do whatever you want. And I wonder how much Tendi actually is imagining, maybe like the fact that her family doesn't like that she's in Starfleet, or she heard
I
some
know
things
exactly
and
what you're saying. Yeah.
she took it at heart,
Yeah.
when actually they're like, no, it's fine. I mean, we would have rather have you here, but do your thing.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
No, go.
No, go. I'll get there. Go.
No. I was gonna make a different
Okay,
point. You were jumping off of her point.
No. Like, and oh my God, am I gonna forget it? Shit.
Sorry.
No, not your fault. But that's what I'm saying about Erica, right? Like, I think Erica's hero worship is a little bit misguided, right? Because like it's what she wants, right? Like, Tendi is really good at it, but she always was very vocal about not wanting it, So like I think Erica really could have like grabbed it by the horns, like you're saying. Like I think Tendi's family is like, oh, you want to join Starfleet? Go ahead. And maybe like you're saying, Draft, like maybe there's a little bit of like a misguided of her family not supporting it, because I think they do. I think her dad and her mom do support them no matter what they want to do.
It's kind of like it's imposter syndrome, right? Like
exactly.
She's sort of like, Tendi was so good at this, and but she didn't want it.
Yeah.
So like, by wanting it, am I less than? Am I not good enough?
Yeah.
Because like, oh, she wanted something, but like, this is the thing that I've always wanted for my life. And so if this person who is good at it didn't want it, does that mean I'm choosing something that is lesser than, or because I'm somehow less of an interesting person? Which is not true, but it speaks to like she has this imposter syndrome because Tendi rejected it, because she's sort of wondering, is like, does Tendi's choice to not choose this make me lesser than, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's imposter syndrome also because like she is very aware of her privilege.
Yes.
And she knows that it's a privilege, and she's good at it, and she has money, and she's an awesome mistress of the winter constellation, and she's a badass, and then she has all this that literally everybody wants, and then she's like, you know what? No, I don't want it. And I think she feels bad about this because everybody wants that, and she had it and she doesn't want it, like
you just made me think about like privilege, like athletes, like often, not always, but especially in like, rich countries, the like top athletes are usually the people who have the most money and time to be able to like go and train, or have access to good equipment, have access to trainers, right? And so there's like a level of privilege that allows them the time to become the best at something.
Yes.
Which is true here. Yeah.
And I want to read Amy Bauer's comment in the chat real quick. I suspect that Tendi's family isn't mad that she's in Starfleet, but they are disappointed that she's wasting her talents. And like, I don't even know if it's her parents, but I think it's maybe what Erica feels like a little bit, right? But that's the one thing I want to talk about, like mainly with how I love this kind of end scene with Tendi, because my biggest thing was when Erica's fighting her, and when it's finally over, and she's like, like, I just didn't think I could ever be as good as you. And Tendi's like, dude, you just kicked my ass, right? And it's not like Tendi held back. Someone said it way up in the chat earlier. Like, Tendi goes full Mistress of the Winter Constellation for a second. It's like, do y'all teach you how to respect the Prime, right? Like, she didn't hold back. She went full Prime. And Erica bested her, right? And Tendi's like, dude, you are great at this. And I really, and Jesse, you keep talking about like why you love Tendi so much, and this is why I love Tendi so much. She is just so thoughtful and caring, and always kind of knows the right thing to say to people, even when she's maybe a bit like unsure about herself. And just that she could, after having this epic fight, just be like, dude, I love you. You are better than me. You're perfect for this. Like, I adored that. And someone in the chat, I'm going to scroll up because I haven't said their name all night, so I want to make sure I say everybody's name. It's interesting. Brobot VR wrote, yo, hands up if you are the black sheep. Like, I'm the black sheep in my family. I have 2 half brothers, and I have a stepbrother and a stepsister. My 2 half brothers and my father are all musically talented. Like, my dad taught film music at Queens College and the New School in New York City. Both my brothers are jazz musicians and have been in bands, are amazing. And I have 0 fucking musical talents. I put my talent into a microphone. Like, that's what a different kind of microphone than music. Right. And I know that there's like probably a little bit of disappointment that like I didn't do the musical thing from my family side, but like I did my thing, and like this is my thing, and I used my voice, and like I think there's something musical about doing podcasting, and like I don't know, and using your voice this way. So am I the black sheep? Sure. Is Tendi the black sheep? Sure. But there's nothing wrong with being the black sheep, and the black sheep can still be supportive. Like I love that, you know, I love the music that my brothers make. My brother Carrie did the music for when we did our Orville season three review. He did our intro music for us, right? Like, and that's what Tendi's doing. She's supporting her sister. And like, I love the end of this episode so much. And I hope that made sense. It did to me, but yeah. Let's talk about T'Lyn very briefly, because T'Lyn also is a big part of this episode, right? She let her guard down in this episode. I talked about this at the very beginning, right? And then she does Tendi. I wrote in the notes like it's a big solid, but like I don't even think it's really doing her a big solid. It's just T'Lyn doing the right thing. Kind of what Giraffe was saying. I don't really think that she was there to write a report. I think she wanted to go have a good time, and she did, and she threw that good time out the window of the flying ship. How do we feel about T'Lyn just letting loose a bit in this one and kind of letting her I don't know, I want to say her freak flag fly, but she let her freak flag fly a little bit in this episode. Jesse.
I mean, I really like T'Lyn. Sorry, I have to, because I've seen future episodes, so there's some more stuff, so I'm trying not to spoil on it. I really like T'Lyn because she is the kind of, in a very similar way, the outcast of her culture as well. Like she does have a very similar sort of like that queer ethos that I was talking about, where like she doesn't fit in, she doesn't fit in how people see her. And so this moment kind of spoke to me in the sense that she's not following the idea of Vulcans sort of being, oh, we're emotionless in the sense that we tend to look down on others, or the kind of like the stereotypical way that they're viewed in Enterprise, I would say. Like in Enterprise, we always got these Vulcans that were just like, we think of logic as like superiority, and we're better than others. We sort of have a holier than thou thing, and we don't really care about the people that we're dealing with.
To a point where it became like a lot of hypocrisy on Vulcan and Enterprise.
Exactly. And while that has sort of been taken apart a little bit through the decades and centuries since then, there's still an element of that throughout all of Vulcan culture that we see. Like we can even see Sarek kind of has that at times, or even some of the other Vulcans are a little bit snooty. And so here with T'Lyn, this is her kind of being like, oh, I can use logic as you know, Spock always said, is the beginning of wisdom, not the end. And actually, like, I'm going to toss it out because that's the ethical thing to do, and care about my subject, quote unquote. I thought that was like a really beautiful way of like her justifying within her own culture, but still being ethical. So I really liked that a lot. It's hard for me because there's more I want to say about T'Lyn, but I have to save it for future episodes.
Yep.
I love T'Lyn. I'm so glad the Vulcans are back, and because we're missing like a Vulcan character, you know. I don't count Spock as a Vulcan character because we don't know what the fuck Spock is doing. Okay, so I mean, T'Pol for me is like the Vulcan character that tells us also so much about this culture that like is always everywhere in Star Trek, but somehow we don't know anything like very clearly. Like, you know, like Star Trek keeps like retconning themselves on on Vulcans. And I just like the fact that these three, Mariner, T'Lyn, and Tendi, basically feel like the wild cards. They defy the expectation of their own culture, and somehow both of them three are brilliant, but brilliant out of the freaking box, you know, and like they do not like put the colors between the lines, and that's what makes them so valuable and at the same time so freaking dangerous. Like, what the hell have they been doing in Orion? Like, Mariner got stabbed like 3 times. 4 maybe. And I can't wait for them to realize this, because I don't think they've realized how how their path follow the same kind of storyline, kind of. I mean, I think they all feel like I think all of them have imposter syndrome towards the other ones. Yeah, like the other ones are so cool and I'm not. And I think they all think of this.
Right,
one
like
to
Mariner
another.
had hardcore hero envy in this episode towards Tendi.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's also women supporting women,
Yep.
and I'm here for that. Like, there's no jealousy. They're just like, yeah,
Yes.
let's go. And I do feel that Tallinn is doing the exact same thing. I feel she feels incomplete because she's here with her pad, right? And the moment where she's like, I'm not gonna do it, it's kind of like, I'm part of the club, I want to be part of the club. But again, Star Trek speaks volume about, I mean, Lower Decks, I'm gonna say, speaks volume how expectation of your culture can weigh somebody down so much. And this is what's going on for Tallinn. I think the expectation that she puts on herself, that our cultural expectation and our family's expectation, maybe, I don't know, like, she's mostly part of the Vulcan expeditionary corps, right? So all this, I mean, she's been trained, and I wonder again, like, we have 3 characters that have internalized rejection and think that rejection from their own people is what defines them. And I think it's dangerous and terrible and super interesting. And we've seen how Mariner is like kind of like, becoming herself through this limitation that she puts on herself, I think. I mean, we don't know what happened with Mariner. So we've seen now Tendi and how she has grown out of this, and somehow she still feels guilty about it. But I think her sister becoming the Prime will help her heal on all that. And I can't wait to see what Tallinn is going to do about this, because I'm pretty sure we talked about it like before, that she thinks she's being punished. I'm pretty convinced about this. I mean, as much as she can feel or want to feel, or we'll say she feels, but
Vulcans can feel.
I'm gonna say she's
Yeah,
feeling
feel very deeply.
Yes,
I don't
very
know.
deeply.
I don't know that she how can I say that? I think she feels the rejection, but I don't know that she has conscientiously formulated that she's been rejected.
I think she's also
Or not.
rebellious towards the rejection. I think she
Yeah,
knows about it a little bit, and I
exactly.
think she's very much
Yeah,
rebelling
that's why I'm
against
like,
it. Yeah.
I don't know that, when you're rejected, like, you're gonna feel the rejection, but then there's another step saying like, oh, I've been rejected. These people are rejecting me.
Yeah.
What is happening? And why, and so on. And I don't know that she's there. I'm not sure. But so that's what I mean by, like, I don't know if she.
Yep.
But yeah, I like the fact that they put them 3 like together, and I wonder how that's gonna push Tallinn's dominoes, towards her self-accomplishment and her finding her own value outside of the Vulcan norm.
Yeah. Yep. MC.
I would like to make a proposal, and that is a Vulcan version of Rumspringa, where Vulcans have to spend a couple years in Starfleet.
Yes.
Because if we look at I've mentioned it before, the Vulcans who have been in Starfleet, just the amount of balance that they are able to get from just being exposed to other cultures, because Vulcans are incredibly isolationists for somebody who's apparently a big mucky buck in the Federation. And we can see this in Tallinn just in the few episodes we've had her, how she goes from episode 1 with her room temperature water, wanting to destroy all of the Tuvix people, to this one where she's dressed in, Orion club wear, eating the eye candy of the guy, the beefcake that gets thrown around.
He was aesthetically pleasing.
He was aesthetically pleasing, yes. And I don't know. I think Mariner might have gotten her laid at the wedding. I mean,
I buy it.
Yeah. I think that T'Lyn holding on to that pad the entire episode. It's her blankie, like her security blanket. That, you know, she's putting everything down because she has to. It's like the justification for being there. And she throws it away when she's finally comfortable being around these people. It's like, I don't need this whole idea of observing you. I need to just be with you because you're my friend. Like, she might not say it like that because she is still Vulcan, but it was kind of this change of, I'm no longer observing you. I'm just with you.
Yeah. MC will appreciate this comment from Brobot VR. T'Lyn and Kelvin Spock were the only ones that could pull off live long and prosper with the same energy as go fuck yourself.
Apparently, I didn't realize that that's in the script too for the 2009 movie.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think in the novelization, it's written as reminiscent of a specific digital gesture.
There you go. Hawk.
T'Lyn, another great episode with her. She's a very it's a deceptive character, right? In the fact that we know that she's there because, you know, the norms of like Vulcan culture and that just do not suit her and that. And I don't think she's here to prove something to the Vulcan High Council or the Vulcan Science Academy and that. She is like all these other, like Billups, like Tendi. She's there. This is a found family. And the way she interacts with it, it's almost like she's still kind of holding on to the pretensions of being Vulcan and that, you know, it's like, that's like the need to make this a scientific expedition to Orion and that, because nobody else has chronicled it and that, it was a pretense in that the entire time. She connects to people like in a way which is very odd. Like with Voimler last week, she knew exactly what to say to him and that to get him over like the incredible hurdles in his head and that for his first command and that. And in this, you know, she had a pretense for being there and that, but in the end, it just didn't matter in that. And the excuse about it being unethical and that was just an excuse and that, you know, she wasn't there to do a report on Tendi or Orion culture and that. She was there just to hang out.
Yep.
Have fun.
Yep.
She wants friends.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys a question about, this is going to my thoughts, Vulcan, right? How do we think that Vulcan, because we know how Romulans felt about reunification, right? But how did Vulcans feel about reunification? Were both sides at the time that Spock was trying to do it big fans? Because I don't think either side were big fans.
I doubt
of
the
it,
Vulcans would have been
First
big
of all,
fans
we
at the
don't
time.
know exactly when it happens, like officially.
No,
right?
but I mean like the idea of it when Spock's trying to make it happen.
Well, the problem for me is that, like, infinite diversity and infinite combination. It's like IDIC is like Vulcan are supposedly. That's supposedly their philosophy, but in Star Trek, we never see them actually applying it. And I'm always thinking that we see Vulcans through the eyes of humans, and there's a lot of like misunderstanding of what's going on, and that's why they're retconning themselves all the time. Like, explain to me how McCoy doesn't know like that. Like a basic Vulcan physiology when like first contact was like what 100 years ago.
Yeah, more than
like,
that, right? Yeah.
Come on,
like,
you know,
first job training, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's the first like 101 like Starfleet medical, you know, like Vulcans, you're gonna have to deal with them.
Yeah.
But I do. For me, I always think that like I always explain everything by we see Vulcans through the prism of humans. And we're some just judgmental bitches, and we have complex inferiority complex towards the Vulcans. So I do think that the Vulcan welcome unification because of what happened on Romulus. Like Romans were like people suffering. There were people who lost their culture, lost their planet, lost everything. And
You
for
mean
me,
after the supernova?
after the
Okay.
supernova, for me, like it happened after the
Right,
supernova,
right,
like
right, right, right.
1000%.
Well, yeah,
like
because there are diaspora people.
yeah, there's
and
diaspora people,
Yeah.
and they are cousins. They have like a common history, and I do think. I mean, I grew up in. I remember when I was a kid. I'm old.
Oh, God.
When France, like when the French president, shake hand with the German president chancellor, it was like a thing. It was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, we're healing the trauma, we're healing the hatred. We're gonna make this happen, and it was such an important step towards unification of Europe, and free market, and no more borders, and the common money. Like I remember before Euro, I remember when we had borders, and I do think that unification, I always like see unification as the same thing as the European Union in my head, that there was a lot of hatred, there was a lot of murder, there were a lot of wars, there was a lot of problems. At one point, people were like, you know what? This is the smart thing to do. Like together, we can protect each other, we can make things happen, we can help each other, and that's gonna work. And I think that all the drama that we see is mostly humans just like not wanting really to see what's going on Vulcan.
Yeah.
What
And
I
of
just
me.
thought, this is not there's a lot of nuances that are not the same in this. So don't want to be very clear. I'm not making a one-to-one parallel with this, but just something that I thought of as you were talking was, I have a friend of mine who's a wonderful YouTuber that y'all should check out, called who's Lady Night the Brave on YouTube. And she's a Jewish content creator, and she talks a lot about, Jewish topics and things like that. And one thing that she always talks about with Star Trek is she hates the Ferengi because she sort of sees them as an anti-Semitic stereotype, which is, there's conversations about that. And, and so I think that is a very cool point of view to have on the Ferengi. But one thing that she always talks about too is why the only like clear Jewish allegory in Star Trek that she really loves is Vulcans. Because there's like different denominations of being a Vulcan, and there's the very clearly like Jewish symbol with the Vulcan salute, Leonard Nimoy also being Jewish. And so hearing you just say that is like, there's an interesting story you could probably tell with like the Romulans being a diaspora people and then coming back to like a homeland on Vulcan. And again, it's not exactly one for one because like Palestinians aren't like a domination of being Jewish, but like there's an interesting sort of like parallels on a lot of those stories that I think you could, I mean, I always wanted to do a politics Star Trek show. So that would be an interesting sort of thing to look into and talk about with like reunifying and things like that. Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a Jew. I don't personally think the Ferengi are anti-Semitic.
Like I said, it's a conversation.
No. And I've heard the argument, and I actually do think it's fascinating, even though I don't personally agree with it. Like you said, like it's a cool take to have. Like it's definitely a conversation to have. I do think Tara wrote as well. Every Jew I know thinks the Ferengi are anti-Semitic. Inside joke in some ways for sure. The reason I brought up unification is because I do wonder. Like I was thinking watching this episode with T'Lyn and everything she kind of does in this episode, if T'Lyn is like very aware of what Spock is trying to do on Romulus, right? Like if she's like following the reunification process and if she wants to be a part of it, right? Because like she is, the more like I think the most rebellious Vulcan that we've seen since Spock, right? And so it's not a bad thing. And, one of my, I think I said my favorite episode of Discovery is Unification 3 because we do finally see it happen. And I do wonder if T'Lyn is a big supporter of that, which is why she does things like, go with her gut. Like we see Spock do in Star Trek 6, like when he just like yells out when the Enterprise is about to be destroyed, gas, right? Will you do surgery on a photon torpedo? Like, there's some like I don't want to compare Spock and T'Lyn because they are very two different characters, but I see some small aspects of the character, and unification is a thing at this time in the Star Trek universe that is just coming to light, and there's opposition on both sides, and I don't know, I just got like heavy vibes from T'Lyn in this episode.
Vulcan is a multicultural society. It has to be. They've been like first contacting people for freaking ever. They've banged half the galaxy. They have like when they're like, oh, Spock is like human and Vulcan. And it's like, come on, you have other like, biracial babies somewhere. They have colonies everywhere. I do think it's just weird how humans like see them. That's
well, we already see like in Enterprise. There's like what is it? There's a logic extremist. There's also the like the Serac people. What is it? The Serac like in Enterprise. There's the two different views on Vulcan. There's and like I said, the logic extremists and Discovery. So like they're clearly a multicultural people as we see throughout all of Star Trek. So
2 hours in. We're finally getting to the B.
I do need to go eat. I'm getting to the B plot.
We'll briefly go through this. Well, I say. Meanwhile, Rutherford.
Julian.
Yes.
The shuttle giveaway.
Did I skip it?
Yes,
I did. It's a good thing that I didn't. Thank you, MC. Who wants to do our shuttle giveaway info real quick? Anybody? Anybody? Yeah, hit it, Hawk. Do it.
So we are giving away a Yosemite shovel. The code word is syndicate, and you can email us that answer to trivia@strangenewpod.com. You can DM the SNP 9000 account or on Twitter and Insta. And if you enter every week, you get your entry stacked.
That's right. And if you don't know the Yosemite shuttle, it's what they took to Orion today. I think that was the Yosemite 2, actually, that they took. There's like the two little lines on there. But if you
speaking of the animation, I always love how like when the shuttle lands, it just clomps to the ground.
Right. It's very forced. It's very forced. I love it. If you haven't seen it yet, go to masterreplicas.com. I don't know if they actually still have the listing because I think it's sold out. But it's beautiful.
They do because it just went back up.
Oh, it just went back up. So it is gorgeous. It is one of the Eagle Moss ones that Eagle Moss never released, and Master Replicas got their hands on it, and we managed to get one to give away. So we are giving that away. You can stack your entries. Definitely email us the code word. Again, it's Syndicate. Thank you, Hawk. I'm trying to blow through this B plot. Rutherford, as they have been dubbed. They dubbed themselves Rutherford. Best of buddies and now roomies. They're having what I would say very healthy, but normal, roomie growing pains. Anybody that's had a dorm room in college, any of that, very similar. I think we could assume that there were probably maybe a couple of small incidents that happened before the ones that we see in this episode, right? But it all kind of comes to a head with their bonsai tree, right? It's the worst of these two. One wants to spray it, the other's like, but I have the perfect way. But no, I grew up in a vineyard, but I have the algorithm in my implant. What did we think about the growing pains between these two, Jessie?
I loved this so much. So just on the comedic level, like just all of like Jack Quaid and Eugene Cordero's deliveries were so good. Like all of them as the Twains were phenomenal. But actually the one that got me the most was when they were arguing over the bonsai tree. And like, I think Boimler goes like, no, Mr. Rutherford. And like at the end of like one line, just his line was just, it killed me. But yeah, I loved this episode because it got like speaks to that like Star Trekian ethos that, and also the lower decks ethos in both ways, where it's like, we can work out our problems, like we can have conflicts and we are able to work them out through mutual understanding and finding common ground. And sometimes the common ground is being a weird Mark Twain, like, fan cosplayer, and like, and that aspect of it is very lower decks because it's like weird. It's just weird. It's weird and strange. They're arguing over a bonsai tree. They're arguing over like Mark Twain stuff. Like it's so lower deck, so Star Trek that I just loved it and it warmed my heart. And it's I don't know, this stuff is like why I love Lower Decks and why I think it's so damn funny that it's like, it's a nice reference to Star Trek Past, yet it's also its own little weird thing. It's dorky, it's dumb, but in a very sweet, endearing, kind way. Yeah, I loved all of that. So
nice. Draft.
I low-key forgot there was a B plot.
Right.
I watched the episode like 5 times. It was like very for me underwhelming. Like I didn't feel it was bringing a lot about the characters. Like Rutherford was doing Rutherford thing, Boimler was doing Boimler thing. They didn't really. I mean, they grew, like they learned to resolve conflict in the holodeck by being somebody they're not, and I don't know. It was cute.
Yeah.
I think we need to disagree, but like, let's talk about it in an accent.
Yeah, and
I
I'm just
say,
like-
Giraffe, I do declare I find
mean-
your opinion on this B plot to be less than satisfactory.
I think it talks about like their immaturity also, because they don't want to
100%.
disagree as being themselves, and because they don't want their disagreement to reflect on like who they are, and like I don't want to refer to be mad at Boimler, so let's have two Mark Twain being mad at each other. And
Well, right, and
it's
they
a
don't settle
cop-out.
it at the end either, because they still go back and be Beethoven's, right? Like
Like
Mozart's.
yeah,
Mozart's.
Yeah.
God damn it.
With harpsichords, no
yeah.
sense. But anyway, yeah, I mean, love for costume, I'm here for it. But on the other hand, like I don't use cosplay to resolve my problem with my roommate, or I don't know.
I
Have
feel
you
like it
tried
would
it?
probably help. I'm just saying, you put on the Vindicta costume, and I think you solve a lot.
I would listen to anything you had to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I laughed at some place, and it was cute, but yeah, I forgot about it mostly.
Just to go off what you said real quick too, like I know that all of us are big fans of Titmouse's shirt releases over the past 3 years, right? But like big fail this week on making the B plot the shirt. Like there were so many other epic shirts to do from this episode, and you chose.
I wanted an Orion.
Right?
Give me
really
anything
bad. I was
Orion
really
from
A
this
slit
episode.
throat.
Slit
Thief
throat bar.
House of the Syndicate. Let's go.
Drinks
I
on the
mean,
house
I
if you
don't
get
know.
bit by the murder spider. So many opportunities. I don't know.
Yeah.
MC.
Oh my God. I think when we watched episode 2, I said, it's like, if they do an episode where they split the room in half, I'm out. And they didn't do that. So bravo. This plot was exactly what it needed to be, in that it was a plot that Giraffe could forget, because it's really it's not much. It's there just because Boimler and Rutherford have to do something, and it's short and sweet, and it serves its purpose. I really like it. I like that their argument. I don't think that they actually, Julian, you said that you think that this was like something that had built. No, I think this was absolutely the first
okay.
time that they had fought. Because the thing is, they're fighting over the fact it's not like Jake and Nog, where they're two very different people coming together. The thing is, they both want to do the same thing.
But you don't
They
think
both want to take care of the bonsai.
you don't think they're references? Sorry, MC. You don't think they're references to
Listen.
like the way you snore or like the way you fall asleep or things like maybe
No, I mean,
one
they
of
love
them
that about each
said
other.
to something? No, and
Maybe.
they were
I
pretending
was-
to be nice about it.
Maybe I'm reading it as like, I don't feel like people I feel like the lower deckers aren't that passive aggressive.
Fair,
Right?
fair, yeah, fair.
I felt like this was just the honeymoon is over, because I mean they were obviously like just so in love with each other until they both
mean-
started stepping on each other's toes.
Fair.
And they are stepping on each other's toes by wanting to do the same thing. They both want to take care of the bonsai. They both want to be Mark Twain. So it's really refreshing to have people arguing with each other by not having a difference of opinion.
We agree too well.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a different take. It speaks to that like lower Dexian like without getting, this is a whole other conversation, so we don't need to get into it. But it's like why I dislike the very short treks, which feel very like mean spirited in their
Mhm.
comedy, whereas
Yeah.
like lower decks gets the comedy that Star Trek should be. Again, we don't. It's a whole other conversation.
No,
but
I'll
the lower
just
decks
say-
I think gets. Lower Decks gets the comedy that I like about Star Trek. To be fair, I will say I like about Star Trek in that like the comedy comes out of the contrast from our day to day, which is everyone is like actually very earnest, actually very kind.
Yeah.
The arguments come out of people having two similar opinions as opposed to like the comedy being like the standard, like, oh, we're gonna split the room, like that sort of tropey sort of stuff that for me the very short treks fall into. Sorry, I didn't mean to touch a nerve.
No, it's okay, because I just wanted to say, because I think this will make Giraffe happy. Giraffe's been looking for vindication for the past 2 weeks about the very short treks. She fucking hates them, and I haven't, and I think some of us haven't agreed. But I will give the vindication this week. I thought this week's was fucking awful. So
It really was.
It was like I wanted to throw up, not because of the boogers, because it was so bad. Anyway, sorry, Hawk.
I think it's fair to say the women did all the heavy lifting this week as far as story and everything.
Right.
Fuck
Yes. So this could have been like completely throwaway in that. And the fact that it is over something so meaningless as a little plant, was almost kind of perfect. They were being completely earnest with each other, and that, they complemented each other as roomies like perfectly in that. But unfortunately, they're also very fastidious, anal, detail-oriented people. Like, and when it comes to like, we saw how like Boimler last week and how like how a problem he had in the kind of distribution of work. So when it came to misting, yeah, of course there was going to be a problem with the two. I just did not expect they were going to work it out over both being Mark Twain.
Oh my God. So through more lack of communication, right? Both dressing up as Mark Twain, realize that dressed up as their favorite author, also very built-in TNG Easter egg to Times Arrow, they can work out their problems. Later, when a Chalanoth is giving Carol a hard time about scanning a nebula, the two suggest trying out to work out their problems like they did, dressed as Mark Twain. And
cut away to Captain Freeman in the outfit, and then the other dude was so
why am I wearing this? And he's like, I'm from that side of China. That is a southern accent.
This is a southern accent.
Oh, I almost died.
The visual gag was just nearly killed me.
So as you can imagine, it goes horribly. But then one of them mentions the bonsai, and he goes, "What is bonsai?" And he sees the bonsai tree. He's like, "This is beautiful. This is beautiful," and he eats it. And Rutherford are just broken, but it destroys them, but like it makes the Chalanoth happy, and the day is saved, and the nebula is able to be scanned. Conclusion of the B plot, and them still not actually working out their issues and going all Mozart, Jesse.
I feel like they did work out their issues.
They
did.
They did.
Because they originally planned like, oh, we'll split that. We'll take the evenings, and you'll take the
evens
odds.
and the odds.
Yeah. So they did work. Yeah. I think the visual gag was very funny. Again, it is kind of very throwaway. It's a very it's a little forced in terms of like getting the resolution and everything. Like it is there, but I loved it. I loved every piece of it. Just the gag. Again, I just nearly died for it. But the last line of the episode, too, where they're in the Mozart outfits, he's like, just let us tickle the ivories. Yes. I'm like, oh my God.
This is very hard to play.
I love it. Yes. It was wonderful. Like I said, it is dumb in the best way, and I loved it. So
yeah, I felt very close to the other captain. The guy was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like, I know who Mark Twain is, but like I don't grow up like reading Mark Twain books. Like I think when I watched Times Arrows, I was like, I had no clue what the fuck that was. Like I was like, it's a dude. I don't know.
I still
mean,
don't
Kentucky...
fully understand Times Arrow, and I've seen it.
Yeah,
1,000
you don't
times.
need to know who the hell he is, and like Kentucky Fried. I thought he was the guy from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
You thought he was the Colonel.
Colonel Sanders.
Yes, Colonel Sanders.
Like we haven't talked about America enough tonight.
So
yeah.
I really feel like that guy was like, "What's happening?" I was like, "It's a Southern accent." It's like, "It's a Southern accent." Like, yeah, I have like an accent also. Like, I think again, like conversation about like cultures, super American stuff, and like they expect the alien of all people to like understand what the hell he's doing in the holodeck in like 19th century America. Come on. A French would not understand
Look,
it.
everyone should understand our culture, Giraffe. How dare
Yeah.
you?
Everybody should have read Mark Twain.
USA.
Is it?
Oh, we need to have a cut of Jesse singing "America, fuck yeah."
Oh, I'm
Did
here for
Did I
it.
do that before we were live? I
Yeah,
think I did
before
it
you were
before.
live. Yeah.
Oh God. MC.
I really wish I had been in the writer's room when they were coming up with this ending for this plot, because I could almost hear it in my head. It's like, so Rutherford and Boimler are going to not get along, but we don't want to take up a lot of time. We got to focus on the Orion plot. And then somebody said, let's have them dress up like Mark Twain. But then where does it go from there? Let's have them get the captain to dress up like Mark Twain too. I mean, it's so brilliant and ridiculous.
You know who they wish they? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, I wish they had gotten to wear the Mark Twain outfit and probably would have been weirdly into it.
Shax.
Shax, yes.
I could see that.
Yes. That would have been perfect, and he would have been weird. I bet you would have loved it.
Yeah, he would love it until Ta'ana came in and tried to turn it into something kinky, and he's just like, no, not this time.
Yet secretly love it too. Yeah.
Yeah. No. It does seem like this was only half a plot because they wanted to spend so much time on the Orion plot, but they amped it up so much that it doesn't matter, because what were they going to do with Rutherford and Boimler not getting along as roommates? They would have done the whole let's separate the quarters with, tape or whatever. And it's not like they have the girls around to bounce things off of. So let's, keep it short, simple, and completely ridiculous. This is utterly fine to do, especially since we have a lot of other stuff to focus on. And I love at the very end when Tendi says, but you guys talked about your feelings, and then you get the reveal, because it's such a dude thing where it's like they know they should just talk about their feelings, but no, we're going to dress up like Mozart instead and argue about which Enterprise D painting to hang up.
Clearly the acrylic. Clearly.
I'm just saying colored pencils.
Colored pencils are
Oh, yeah, that
very
would
nice
look
and
good.
underrated.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yep. Hawk.
Everybody said everything. I was just glad we got a Chalnoth in this episode. I can't remember his name, but I guarantee you it means fighter. And I absolutely love that Captain Freeman banned the Mark Twain holodeck program.
She would.
Yeah.
I just thought the Brobot VR's comment was funny. Jesse with the actual Cap America shield in the background too, not lost on the chat.
Look, I do not love America as a country, but that man, Steve Rogers, he lived up to what America.
He's
stood
America's
for.
The best ass. The best ass.
Yes,
The best ass. The
He
best
stood for
ass.
America's ideals, even when America doesn't stand up for his ideals, which is frankly since its inception.
I have nothing to say on this last part. It was great. Like I love this episode as a whole because it had a great A plot, and the B plot served its purpose as being a B plot. And kind of like what Hawk just said, that listen, Chaldoth's a deep cut, right? Like and I'm here for it, right? And the fact that he was just mainly angry, and like the fact that he was the Chalnoth from TNG until he saw a bonsai tree just was everything. So no, I adored it. I feel like we talked about it at the top of the show, so I'm debating skipping this altogether, but I guess we'll just very, very, very briefly, saving the cold open for last. We get to see the probe thing again that's been quote unquote destroying a Klingon vessel, a Romulan vessel, and now an Orion vessel. Does anyone have any more theories before we move on? No? Good.
I mean, I'll
It's the same one as always. They're being teleported or something.
yeah.
It's a menagerie.
It's a
Yeah.
menage. Yeah, it's a menagerie.
That was my theory that I had. I'm trying to make sure I don't. This isn't going to spoil anything that I've seen. No, it's not, because this is the theory I came up with when I first saw it, is that since we know the AI villains are sort of like the big background villains sort of being built up with like Badgie, Peanut Hamper, and Agamus, my idea was like, oh, they are maybe killing these people, but they're like uploading them into like an AI heaven. So it's like they're all turning into AIs that are then living in like some weird heaven thing that they're downloading people into. That's my theory on what
that's interesting.
That's juicy.
Yeah.
I'm still going with Mike McMahon being Mike McMahon and making it simple, basic, and it's the NXL1 shuttle pod. It's Angry Trip, Angry Reed in an alternate universe where they weren't rescued by Enterprise and became a V'ger type thing, because that thing is shaped like an NXO1 shuttle pod. Going with
I actually have a real theory, to be honest.
I do like that.
And
that's
I
a
hope
real
it's not.
theory.
And I hope
I'm
it's
not
not.
fucking around.
No, I was talking about mine, about the menagerie one.
Yeah,
I really hope it's not that, but I hope it's not like the chase bullshit where like they're collecting all the different aliens to make the original one alien that seeded all the
Love
planet
that.
in the TNG episode. Because so far every episode is a different species, right? So why?
Yep.
Yeah, I do like the people in the people in the chat are saying it's William Boimler. That's very possible.
Yep. We
yeah.
we have not
Very
had a
possible.
resolution to that yet.
Yeah.
Yep.
What I also do like about these little bits too with the Orions and like different species is they're kind of doing their Weege Dooch throughout the season, where it's like this little lower deck snippets of different other ships. So
Could it be an angry lower decker who didn't get a promotion? Yeah. We'll find out at some point. Easter egg hunt. I think we've mentioned a few throughout these past couple of hours, but any that I missed that aren't on this list? Anybody have anything?
there is one that I will shout out. My friend, why am I blanking on his name? Geek Filter, Aaron.
Yes.
Aaron Harvey. He sent me when he watched the episode. The Orion ship, like the captain's chair, actually vaguely looks like the weird green Orions from the animated series. Ship.
Oh,
like
funny.
remember the ones like the weird outfits? Like it's not one for one, but the shape of the chair and the background of the ship is like somewhat reminiscent of those Orions from the animated series.
Awesome. Anything else? Anybody? No? Quickly, the ones in here, we've talked about it a ton. Mariner refers to the Enterprise episode where the Orions take the ship. Very problematic. Mariner tries to make that situation right. Mariner's and Tendy's still like, no, some of us actually do have pheromones, just not all of us. Nice little reference there. Mark Twain is obviously Times Arrow. If you never watched TNG, go watch those episodes. They still don't make any sense to this
Mark
day.
Twain.
Or actual, go read Mark Twain. Just go read Mark Twain. Shalnoth from the TNG episode, which name I don't remember, where Picard
Allegiance.
Thank you. Gets captured with a whole other group and is replaced by a doppelganger who has nothing but positive things to say about his crew. So maybe a better captain than Jean-Luc. We'll never know. We'll never know. We've gone over 2 hours with our thoughts on this episode. I will say briefly, any final thoughts on this episode, Jesse?
I mean, I've said most of what I wanted to say in my big rant earlier. I will just end on this is legitimately, for very personal reasons. I think this is a great episode all around, but for very personal reasons, this is an episode that has like skyrocketed to easily one of my favorite episodes of Lower Decks, if not my favorite, and one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek, period. And I say that having watched this weeks ago, so it's not like a recency bias. Like, I love this episode for very, very personal reasons to me. So this was wonderful.
Nice. Giraffe?
I liked it. It was fun. Listen, Lower Deck is feeding me every week. I'm not scared. I'm scared every Wednesday, but I'm not scared on Thursday. So,
Very much with you, Giraffe. Yeah.
let's keep that going. The
Love it.
Thursday one, not the Wednesday one.
Love it.
Well, when's next week we get Aaron Waldke for
Yeah, fingers crossed. I know. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe. I love
If
him.
anybody
I know it would
can,
be
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Like, if anybody can
Save
fix
it.
this, it's
Save
Aaron
it, Aaron.
Waldke.
MC.
This season is a banger so far, and this one hits the hardest. Like, I love this episode so much. It's my girl, it's my girls, and it's just everything works so well.
Hawk.
It's so weird to me that we are getting probably the best and probably most sensitive writing in that from a show which is supposed to be animated and largely comedic. It blows my mind every time. This episode, no less.
Listen, no secret. We've talked about it before this episode. We'll talk about it again. We get screeners for this episode. We've seen a lot of this season. The reason I bring that up is we had the pleasure in Toronto, MC, Eric, and I, of getting to sit in our hotel room and binge the season together. A rarity. We don't get to do that often, and it was wonderful, and it was fun, and it was amazing. And at the end of all that, MC kept asking me, what's your favorite episode? What's your favorite episode? And I kept on going back to this one. I love Tendi. Tendi's my favorite episode on Lower Decks. This is my favorite episode of the season. It's maybe in my top 3, top 2, maybe my favorite episode of Lower Decks. It is so good. It's like, I think our Lower Decks episodes have been going an hour and a half, and we've talked about this one for almost 2.5 hours. So
Yeah.
you can see why. It's a really special
Hold
episode.
my beer for next week.
Oh, well, this is why I love Lower Decks. It's so dense. Like it's a 22-minute episode, and yet we talked about like class divisions, matriarchy,
Yes.
weird Mark Twain voices, trans
Sex.
theory, queer theory, like
Everything.
cultural differences, and that's 22 minutes. We ran the gamut from like sex, like it was drug, like how drugs come up in society, and yet we also laughed a lot. Like this is so Star Trek, and I love it.
And to that point, Jesse, props to Mike McMahon, props to the writing team, props to the animation team. And this is why we pay writers, and this is why we pay actors, even if voice actors aren't part of the strike. They should be.
And artists too.
And
'cause
exactly.
artists are
Artists.
historically overworked and underpaid as well, even
Yep.
though they aren't currently on strike. So
Everyone deserves to be paid fairly, and this episode is a great reason why. With that being said, it is time to get to the subspace to pull and mailbag.
Hailing frequencies open.
And Jesse, you're our guest, so you get the poll automatically. What did people have to say this week?
all right, where is it on the sheet here? Is there actual percents here? Am I reading the right thing? Mine saying doesn't say.
Oh, did we not?
Oh, hold on.
Hawk, you
Oh,
didn't
boy.
do
Oh
your
my gosh.
job.
Oh my
He tosses it to me. I'm like, I don't have
You
the
had
numbers. What do you want to
one
do?
job.
Well,
You had
fire to the bus,
one
Julian.
job.
Oh my.
I'll make it up.
1 second.
Well, as Hawk is putting it in, you asked what they thought about episode 404 of Lower Decks, and this is what everyone had to say. 74.5% said swashbuckling. 12.8% said weddings. I love weddings. 8.5% said needs more moans. Need the moans, man. And 4.3% said throw me overboard. So the consensus. So there is a 4% that got it wrong in my book.
Who hurt you
We
guys?
always say who hurt you.
Yeah, different opinions, cool, but it
Yeah.
seems overwhelmingly was.
I want
was
to
a
know.
big-
See, when every time we
okay.
see that, I'm like, what didn't you like? Like, I need to know
I do
because
want
sometimes
to
I'm like,
really know.
I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's messed up.
It might be
It's Star
just
Trek.
that it's
There's
Star
always
Trek
something
made
in
after
Star Trek episodes like,
1990.
That's actually fucked up. We're actually every Star Trek.
We
episode.
literally got a comment on a GIF that we posted, like one of those, like, listen, no bullshit. We try to get replies. We try to get into the algorithm. We posted the Mariner GIF of when she says "holy fuck" for seeing Moopsie, right? And we asked, like, what is your holy fuck moment of Star
I
Trek?
saw that.
Yeah, and someone's like, oh, it was when Star Trek decided to go with childish humor and add swearing, like, holy fuck. And I'm like, sir, this is a Wendy's. Like, just get over yourself. With that being
Your
said,
fucking hubris of those.
oh
people.
my God, how dare
The
you?
right answer was Lorca.
Lorca.
Uh,
Lorca. Giraffe, if you can continue with our mailbag with Matt
Yes.
Harkers, please.
Matt Harker, happy birthday, Matt. by
Happy
the
birthday,
way.
Matt!
Happy birthday, Matt.
Yay.
Happy 22 years old. I absolutely loved it, from the moan heads to the stink. If someone doesn't make a flay t-shirt. It will be an absolute crime. The world needs Giraffe to do a Madame cosplay, right? Oh my God, listen.
Right?
I have work. I'm like working on like so many cosplays right now. But yeah, I wanted like the bartender, like the
I think that's
ball,
who.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, see, I want Lynn's outfit. That's the one that I
Yeah.
want.
Also good.
That's a good one.
And with the gold headband was a nice touch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even though the material's not efficient.
No, not efficient at all. No. MC with Wainers, please.
Wayner wrote, I haven't done a mailbag in forever. This might be my favorite Lower Decks episode. I know the focus was supposed to be on Tendi, but for me it was Boimler and Rutherford, and I never ship people. That's always the thing I care about the least, except this time. Boimler heart, Rutherford forever.
Brotherford.
Hey, I'm here for it. Why
Here for
not?
it.
Right? Hawk with RHCBs, please.
Sure, RHCB wrote, OMG, when I was hoping for more Mariner and Tendi and now Lynn team-ups, I did not think we would be getting this banger of an episode. It was amazing. I loved everything about it. Tendi being an even bigger prime badass than we thought. Mariner being in awe of everything around her and getting stabbed multiple times. The hump dungeon run by Ursula, the sea creature's cousin, or the sea witch's cousin. To Lynn's observations and being a true friend, even Rutherford's goofy Twain and Mozart tangents were a delight. I hope we return here again, if not this season, then in a future one. And I want more photos from the wedding a la the Hangover post-credit. Oh,
Yeah, right?
Right?
I want to see the priest with the 8-pack.
Yes.
Yes.
damn, almost forgot about the Orion lower decks. Amazing.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yep, chef's kiss, right?
Chef's kiss.
Riker Tattoo Chris wrote, this episode was so much fun. Mariner and T'Lyn were hilarious as they look in the Orion culture. I want to hang out in that club, but I do declare their games seem dangerous. I mean, knives and murder spiders, agreed. Like Bert, I cannot keep my mouth closed about how amazing this episode was for character development and reference hilarities. I'm glad the show comes at you like a knife thrown at Mariner's shoulder. Well done, well done. 11 out of 10 moans. Continue on, please. Oh, Jessie, you get the awesome honor. This is awesome. This I didn't plan this, but I'm happy it worked out this way. You get Tara's limerick. Yeah, please.
I was just looking at that. This is great. And I'm gonna in honor, can I say it as Mark Twain?
Please do.
Absolutely.
We insist.
Do I want to know what a cage shower is? Limerick for something borrowed, something green. Tendi might say it's not easy being green. All that Winster Constellation's duty to be a badass queen. Maybe Sister Erica's the prime tip of the Moonlight Blade, and post-nuptials someone could get Mariner some first aid. Rutherford's bonsai, sigh, it was so serene.
Well done. Well done.
Great.
Bravo. Bravo.
Tara, that was wonderful.
Wonderful. As always, Tara. Draft, if you can continue, please, with CBFs.
CBF wrote, after having spent the past week sick and rewatching the entirety of Lower Decks, this week's episode is one of my favorites so far. T'Lyn and Mariner's running commentary throughout the trip was just the best. So many great one-liners. But among my favorites were T'Lyn's, how many knots can you tie? And he is aesthetically pleasing. Also, was this the first time getting to see the Orion homeworld in canon?
I believe it was, by the way.
It was, yeah. I mean, there's the holodeck when Tendi, the first episode, and she shows like, I loved every minute of it. Orion, it's greener than you think.
Nice.
It was a good t-shirt.
It was. Yeah. Yeah. MC, real quick before you go, Tara just wanted to say thank you, Jessie. Perfect. Yes. MC, take us home, please, with NY Rowlights.
NY Rowlight wrote, Tendi, Mariner, and T'Lyn are my new favorite power team on Lower Decks. Archer would have been flayed alive if Tendi had been on the Enterprise. Tendi is the badass Orion that Osira wishes she could be. I wasn't as much of a fan, though, of the Boimler and Rutherford B plot.
It served its purpose, right? It did. It
It
did.
most
its job.
certainly
It
did.
is logical to
Ah.
celebrate not having a purpose.
Indeed. That is gonna do. I think this is actually a record for the longest Lower Decks review episode, as well. It should. One of the best episodes of the show ever. With that being said, it is time to say goodbye. Before we do, Jessie, please let us know what is going on with you. Where can people find you? What do you have coming up? Plug away, please.
Thank you very much. I will try and be quick. So you can find me at Jessie Gender. That is my YouTube channel where I do my video essay type of things. Coming up, not next week, but the week after, I have a video on, because I talk about trans issues and science fiction stuff in sort of equal measure. I have a video on why trans women are not biological males, which is a phrase you'll often hear used to vilify trans women. So look for that video. I think it'll be very educational. I try to do it in a very fun way, while also talking about some of the harder stuff. But I also do a lot of other fun things. I have a big video on Star Wars that I'm working on that's going to come out. It's going to have animation, fun things. So check out that site if you want some education about LGBTQ stuff, or also just a weird dork talking about sci-fi stuff, because it comes in equal measure there. But I'm also working on a short film that is going to be released. Well, we're going to be filming at the end of October. That is finally officially moving forward. So very excited about that. And that is going to star many wonderful people, not the least of which to this crowd, Star Trek's John Delancey, but it is also full of queer, trans, and women-led cast and crew beyond John Delancey. So very excited about that. And if you want to get that, please subscribe over on Nebula, which is the streaming service that is distributing it and funding it and hosting it when it comes out. And if you sign up over there, that actually supports the project and lets them know that you want to see more, because Identities hopefully will become a series. That is the plan and hope for it. But beyond that, I'm on Patreon. If you want to support me there, I'm also on all the social medias, the artist formerly known as Twitter, Blue Sky, all those fun things. So
We will call it Twitter until it becomes subscription, and we all leave.
Name that. It's not a person. I do not respect its. I do not respect its name or pronouns. It's Twitter.
Love it, Jessie. Listen, every time that you come on, it's a pleasure as always. This one is no different. We have loved having you. That is going to do it for this one. We will see you Wednesday, I think is what I said, for our Picard season 3 review. That is coming up, and then that Thursday for our live review, as always, for episode 405 of Star Trek Lower Decks. So I will say, what Giraffe?
Giraffe's just happy about 405.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
ready for
Giraffe is going to go
405.
off on 405. Can't wait.
I know why too.
Yep, same. So I will say, for MC, for Giraffe, for Hawk, and our very amazing friend and guest, Jessie, live long and prosper. And I will also, I almost forgot to, in our favorite communication officer's voice,
You fly safe out there.
live long and prosper, Majram, and good night.